The chill just before dawn lay over Winterfell like a silent hand, frosting the ramparts and quieting every sound, save the occasional hoot of an owl. Robert Baratheon, King of the Seven Kingdoms, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, Conqueror of the Usurper's War, stood alone at his chamber window, his breath smoking against the murky glass. He should have been sleeping off the ale that always accompanied late tonight, reminiscing with Eddard Stark. Yet the restlessness that had trailed him north refused to loosen its claws. He had come to name Ned Hand, aye, and to drag his oldest friend back to a capital rotting beneath Lannister gold. But another, darker purpose had begun to coil in his mind on the ride from Moat Cailin. One he had not dared give voice even to himself, lest the very thought break something inside him. Bran's fall weighed on the castle like a funeral shroud. Servants whispered of restless gods and strange dreams. Septa Mordane spoke louder prayers in the sept. Old Nan sprinkled salt at every threshold she crossed. Robert might have dismissed such northern frets as country superstition, if not for the way Cersei's eyes flickered whenever the boy's name arose. Those green eyes had been jewels once, drawing him to a marriage bed he had never truly wanted. Now he found only secrets behind them. Secret smiles, secret sorrows, and if his growing dread spoke true, secret sins. He turned from the window when the first torches bobbed in the yard below. The royal guard changed shifts before dawn, gold cloaks rubbing sleep from their eyes while Stark men stamped their boots for warmth. By habit, Robert counted helms, measuring how many were his and how many Ned's. 5 Lannister crimson helms gleamed in the torchlight, where only 2 should have been. Jaime again, he thought. For the King's Lair was never content to trust dullard captains. Robert's mouth twisted. Jaime guarded Cersei with a zeal no sworn brother showed his queen. The king had accepted it for years, had even wished, in some muted corner of himself, that such devotion might stir their cold marriage to life. But last night, stumbling down an unlit corridor looking for a privy, Robert had caught a glimpse that would not fade. 2 golden heads pressed close behind an arras. A woman's hand splayed against a man's armored chest, lips meeting in an intimacy that seared Robert's soul like dragon fire. He had not spoken, had not drawn Lightbringer or shouted treason. He had fled, heavy of foot and heavier of heart, to the Godswood where the black pool reflected the moon like a shattered crown. There he had knelt beneath the heart tree and begged the old gods, Nen's gods, to tell him it was some drunken vision. Dawn brought no answer but the ache in his knees. Kings learned swiftly that the gods' silence was their most common tongue. Now, back in the waking world, Robert pulled on a doublet of black wool sewn with gold stags. Ignoring the fur-lined cloak Megris, the steward fussed over. He wanted no warmth. Cold suited the storm inside him. As he buckled his sword belt, the haft of a dagger brushed his thigh. The small blade was plain, its pommel smooth leather. A hunter's tool, not a king's ornament. Jon Arryn had gifted it to him long ago, warning that every ruler must carry steel suited for quiet work as well as open war. Robert had laughed then. Tonight, he did not. Outside his chamber, he found Sir Barristan Selmy, waiting like a statue come to life. Visor up, silver hair stirring in the corridor's draft. "Sire," the Lord Commander intoned. No questions, no curiosity, just service. Robert felt a pang of gratitude deeper than any he'd shown the old knight. If Barristan the Bold sensed his king's turmoil, he gave no sign. "Walk with me," Robert said, setting off toward the great hall. The corridor stretched empty save for rushlights guttering in iron sconces. Their footsteps echoed between stone walls etched with direwolves. Robert broke the silence first. Bran Stark lies broken, and no one saw him fall. "So Lord Eddard told me," Barristan replied softly. "And Sir Jaime?" "The Kingslayer rode out before dawn, sire. A morning gallop," the guard said. Robert almost laughed at that, an ugly bark that made Barristan glance over. Jaime rode at dawn because the gods were merciful to men who needed shadows to hide their sins. "If ever a lion longed to be a wolf," Robert muttered, "it is that one." He did not elaborate. The words tasted poisonous enough unspoken. At the stair leading down to the yard, Robert paused. From here he could see the training grounds. Stark men drilling with spears, Lannister guards idling by the armory doors. Somewhere in that jumble moved Cersei, sheathed in satin and smiles, weaving a net invisible to northern eyes. He clenched his fists. In the whispers of stone and wind, he heard the boom of Rhaegar's war drum on the trident, the clang of his own hammer meeting dragon steel. Lyanna screaming beneath a canopy of blue roses that bled and bled. "Ned Solar," Robert said suddenly. "We go there." Barristan nodded and altered course without question. The hall they entered smelled of pine tar and parchment. A single candle burned beside a pile of ledgers. Ned Stark sat with quill in calloused fingers, his gray eyes lifting as the door opened. Unlike Robert, he wore no sigils, only wool as plain as the hearthstones. Yet he looked more a lord than any man in jeweled brocade. "Your Grace," Ned greeted. "You rise early, or never truly slept." Robert closed the door, leaving Barristan outside. He faced the friend who was closer than a brother, yet farther now than the wall itself. "Tell me true, Ned. What did Jon Arryn die for?" The quill halted. Ned's jaw tightened as though iron bands cinched it. "We spoke of that in our cups, Robert. Jon was investigating." "Bastards," Robert finished, spitting the word. "Yes. Black-haired babes in King's Landing, so you said. But bastards alone do not kill a hand of the king. Lies do. Lies festering at the heart of my marriage." He saw Ned's eyes flicker, too quickly. Recognition. Fear. Pity. "How long have you known?" Robert asked, voice low. Ned set the quill down with deliberate calm. "Known? No. Suspected." Robert's pulse hammered. "And that is why you rode south to the Vale for Gendry. Why Jon Arryn sought Mester Pycelle's books on lineages. You suspected—" "What, Ned? Say it." Ned's fingers tightened on the desktop. "That the royal children are not of your seed." The sentence struck like a mace. Yet Robert felt grim relief wash through him. Relief that he was not mad, that Ned's silence had an explanation. "Not mine," he echoed, savagely quiet. "Jaime's." Ned nodded once. "Robert, I prayed it was rumor. But the truth sits plain in the children's hair, their eyes. Gold where there should be black." Robert gripped the dagger at his belt. He imagined plunging it into Jaime's heart, imagined Cersei's scream, imagined stoic little Joffrey staring in confusion as the world he knew burned. "I saw them," he whispered. "Last night, in an alcove near the broken tower. Lovers, bold as summer day. Then? No." Pain cut across Ned's face, deeper than even the sight of his son crippled. "Then there is no doubt. There is only treason," Robert growled. He slammed a fist down, rattling inkpots. "I cannot leave Winterfell until this is ended. If I ride south with them, I ride surrounded by vipers." Ned rose. "We must move carefully." Cersei commands Lannister swords. Jaime is twice the knight any man claims. Confront them openly, and they will strike before you can act. Robert's laugh was a jagged thing. "You counsel patience. The Wolf King who howled for justice at every turn during our rebellion. Then? For Lyanna's sake I will counsel whatever keeps blood from your throat," Ned snapped, then visibly mastered himself. "Listen, Robert. Gather the men you trust. Barristan, Ser Jorah Castle, your own sworn brothers who march to a truer drum than gold. Quietly we disarm the Lannister guard. We confine Cersei to her chambers and question Jaime under seal of the king's justice. Stark honor lends weight enough to silence gossip until... Until what?" Robert demanded. "Until I strangle my wife while she sobs that she loves her brother? Until I play father to cubs robed in lion skins?" He strode to the window slit. Gray light painted the yard. Snowflakes twirled like ashes. "No, I will not allow their bastard prince to wear my crown. Better a war now, here, amid snow and ice, than a war later in every city of the realm." Ned's voice dropped. "A war will kill small folk who never knew a king beyond coin minted with your face. And a lie enthroned kills the realm in its heart." They stood breathing across parchment that fluttered in the draft. Outside, the yard began to stir with the day's life. Stable boys laughing, hounds barking, steel glancing off practice shields. Life that might end before nightfall, if Robert loosed the storm inside him. He felt the weight of every man who had died for his crown. Jon Arryn, Arthur Dayne, Rhaegar, all the nameless spearmen drowned at the trident. The crown sat on his brow like cold iron, but beneath it, his skull throbbed with the need for truth. He turned from the window. I will confront them tonight, in my chambers. You will stand beside me, and Sir Barristan as witness. Jaime will come when summoned, arrogant creature that he is. I would rather kill him with words, but steel may speak louder. Then no one see you. Ned's frown deepened, yet he bowed. Very well. Then, tell me you will temper wrath with sense. Sense? Robert sheathed the dagger. Sense departed the moment the gods allowed a sister to lie with a brother under my roof. The day crawled. Robert forced down honeyed porridge that tasted of ashes, met with Maester Luwin to discuss Bran's fever, watched Joffrey spar with Robb while princes swaggered and lordlings gritted teeth. Jaime returned from his ride at midday, cheeks ruddy, golden hair gleaming with melted snow. He bowed to Robert with mocking courtesy. Too low, Robert thought, as though he already believed the king no more than a puppet. Cersei dined in her rooms, to pray for Bran's recovery, sending only a perfumed note. Robert crushed the parchment in his fist. Above, the sky turned leaden with snow clouds, and by dusk flakes drifted into tower windows, glowing in torchlight like embers reversed. Nightfall found Robert pacing the length of his chamber while Ned and Barristan waited like statues. The king had drunk nothing stronger than watered wine all day, lest his words slur and gift the Lannisters a victory of rumor. He felt every heartbeat as a drum of war. A knock. Ser Meryn Trant, announced Queen Cersei. She swept in cloaked in emerald velvet, hair coiled like a crown of sunlight. Her gaze flicked over Ned, cool, and Barristan, calculating, before resting on Robert with an expression he had not seen since their wedding night. Something perilously close to hope. My lord husband, she said. You summoned me? I summoned the Kingslayer as well, Robert replied. Wait with me, my lady. Her composure faltered at the title, never used, save in council. She perched on a cushioned chair, hands folding in her lap. Silence filled the room like smoke. Another knock. Jaime entered wearing black and crimson. Sword belted but helm left behind. You sent for me, your grace. Yes. Robert gestured him forward. Ned shut the door. Barristan stepped beside it, hand resting on the hilt of his longsword. Robert studied them, the mirror twin faces, the arrogance they wore like scented oil. He thought of the babe he had cradled at Casterly Rock, Joffrey bawling while Cersei cooed. He thought of Myrcella giggling as Robert bounced her, sweet as a summer peach. He thought of Tommen wrestling with a mastiff puppy, while Robert roared laughter. And he thought, not mine, none of mine. He spoke. When a father looks upon his child, he knows his blood. So we are told. Cersei's lips thinned. Jaime's hand brushed the lion hilt of his sword, a gesture less threat than habit. I have looked upon Joffrey, Robert continued, voice even. Upon Myrcella and Tommen. I see Lannister gold in their hair. I see no Baratheon in their eyes. He stepped closer until he could smell Cersei's perfume, lemons and fear. Whose seed birthed them? Cersei rose, proud as any queen. Mine, she said. Ours. Her glance flicked to Jaime. He stood silent, eyes narrow, the very picture of cold resolve. Brother and sister, Robert whispered. Abomination. The word scraped his throat. Raw. You cuckolded your king and damned our realm. Cersei's chin lifted. We made it stronger. The blood of Casterly Rock. A golden thread unbroken. Inbred thread. Robert roared. He slapped her. The crack echoed. She staggered but did not fall. Jaime leaped forward, hand flying to sword. Barristan drew first, parrying Jaime's half-drawn blade. Steel rang, sparks dancing like fireflies. Ned stepped between Robert and Cersei, arms spread. Enough. His voice cut through the clash. Yet Robert's rage had broken free. He lunged, meaty hands closing around Jaime's throat, while the Kingslayer still fenced with Barristan. The old knight disengaged at once, unwilling to harm his liege, and Jaime twisted under Robert's grip, eyes wide as a stag in snare. Cersei screamed, a wordless note that chilled Ned more than any war horn. She snatched a letter opener from the writing desk and drove it toward Robert's back. Ned seized her wrist mid-arc. The thin blade slipped from her fingers and clattered. She spat at him, green eyes blazing hate. Jaime's gauntleted fist connected with Robert's jaw. The king reeled, but red fury steadied him. He slammed Jaime against the oaken bedpost. Gilded wood splintered. "Your Grace," Barristan cried. "We need him alive to answer for his crimes. Alive or dead, the crime stands." Robert snarled, yet he relented enough to hurl Jaime onto the floorboards. The Kingslayer coughed, golden hair disordered. Barristan placed a mailed foot on the fallen knight's sword and kicked it aside. Finally, silence, broken only by Robert's ragged breathing and Cersei's low sobs. Ned released her. She sank to her knees, hands shaking. The Queen tried to speak, but Robert forestalled her. "You will be confined," he said, voice like winter stone, "from this night until the end of time. If the gods deem your children, we shall see." "Then?" Cersei's head snapped up. "Touch them, and I will." "You will what?" Robert towered over her. "Summon Tywin's hosts." "Already done, I wager. But ravens fly slow to the north, and slower still when Ned Stark's men hold the rookery." Ned nodded. He had ordered Maester Luwin hours earlier to delay any raven-bearing Lannister seals. Robert turned to Barristan. "Take the Kingslayer to the dungeons, double guard. Only men of unquestioned loyalty. As you command." Barristan hauled Jaime up. The knight's green eyes glittered poison. "You will hear from my father," Jaime hissed. "I look forward to it," Robert growled. When they were gone, Cersei remained kneeling. Her tears had fled. Fury carved lines in her face. "You think this victory?" she whispered. "You doom us all. Tywin will burn the north to ashes for this insult." Robert felt the weight of that threat, but another truth pressed harder. The realm could not stand upon a lie. He gestured Ned closer. "Summon the great lords still in Winterfell. Roose Bolton, the Manderless, young Jon Umber. We will hold council, come sunrise. And send riders to Stannis on Dragonstone. Renly, in Storm's End. The realm must know the king's heirs are false." "And now wow." "And if Tywin marches?" Ned asked. "Then the lion and stag shall war once more." Robert's voice was iron. "But this time, I will not lay down my hammer until every head that threatens the peace of the realm lies broken." Cersei laughed. A brittle sound. "The peace of the realm," she echoed. "There is no peace, only power and the shadows of swords." Robert turned away, suddenly weary. Snow drifted through the slit window, settling in his black hair like white crowns. "Then let us see whose shadow is longest." Ned guided the Queen from the room, 2 Stark guards taking her arms. Alone at last, Robert sank onto the bed's edge. He felt old, older than Jon Arryn had ever seemed. Outside, Winterfell's towers loomed against a stormy sky, their stones indifferent to the small tragedies of kings. Somewhere below, Bran Stark breathed shallow breaths beneath wolf pelts. Somewhere in the yard, a smith beat iron in steady rhythm, each strike echoing the heartbeat of a realm on the cusp of ruin. Robert Baratheon closed his eyes, and for the first time since the Trident, he prayed not for glory but for the strength to outlive his own decisions. Kay. Kake. Dawn bled slowly into Winterfell's sky, bruising it violet before the first pale light seeped between the battlements. Smoke drifted from the chimneys, mingling with the hush that followed the night's upheaval. Word had not yet reached the small folk, nor even most of the castle's garrison, but rumor moved faster than ravens. By the time a blackbird perched on the godswood wall and sang its thin, chilly song, every kennel boy and kitchen maid sensed the air had changed, like snow about to break from an overloaded roof. Inside the inner keep, Robert Baratheon sat slumped in a high-backed chair before a hastily stoked hearth, staring into flames that crackled over dry pine. He had not slept a moment. The firelight painted his cheeks red, but his eyes were dull iron. Only when the door creaked behind him did he stir. Ned Stark entered without ceremony, cloak flung across one arm, his mouth pressed to a flat line that told he came bearing fresh burdens. "Cersei is secured," Ned said, keeping his voice low though they were alone. She raged for hours, but the guard at her door never wavered. Hullen posted 2 hounds in the corridor as well. Even a queen thinks twice about screaming treason when deerwolves might hear. Robert grunted and dragged a hand through his unkempt hair. "And Jaime?" "Below the old crypt stair. The cell is damp, but he will not freeze. Steel bars and sober men on every side, torches always lit. Sir Barristan chose 4 of your own Stormlanders to watch him in shifts. Each swore an unsullied oath." "Then?" "A king's guard in chains," Robert muttered. "Would that heiress live to see it?" He took a skin from a side table, sniffed, then set it down without drinking. "Tell me of the Raven to Dragonstone." "Sailed at first light," Ned confirmed. "Maester Lewin's cipher. Only Stannis can break it. Another for Renly at Storm's End. I sent one to Hoster Tully as well. His men patrol the Trident, and if we march south, we will need safe passage across the rivers." "Nine." Robert rubbed his temples. "Gods, let Hoster's gout spare me lectures on duty and forgiveness." "He will spare them for Catelyn's sake," Ned said, though not with certainty. Outside the narrow window, snowflakes chased each other like restless gnats. Robert's gaze followed them, the silence yawning wide enough to swallow both men. At last he rasped, "They will know by now in their bones, Ned. Tywin will feel some tremor in his golden halls, the instant his whelps cease answering Ravenquill." He closed his fist. "We must plan for war." Ned's gray eyes met his. "Yes, but a war begun poorly ends worse. We face 3 foes. Lannister armies, the uncertainty of the realm, and your own council in King's Landing. Varys will spin spider webs. Littlefinger will sell his weight in rumors. Pycelle will weep and plead for leniency to House Lannister. All will grind any message we send into their own meal. We must decide now. Ride south at once with what strength we have, or dig in until allies gather." "Lindawanand." Robert's nostrils flared. "And give Tywin weeks to march unhindered. He will seize the King's Road, bribe the Riverlords, maybe strike at King's Landing itself before I cross the neck." "Unless we cross the neck before he can rouse his levies," Ned said quietly. "The north is spare of cavalry compared to the Reach or the Westerlands, but our men ride hard. A swift column, Stark horse, your own Stormlanders, the small folk volunteers from the Barrowlands, could reach the twins in a fortnight. Walder Frey counts every coin. Promise him royal favor, and his gates will swing wide. Once south of the Trident, we turn east for Harrenhal. Take that fortress. We command the crossroads of the realm. Tywin would think twice before assailing stone thick enough to swallow fire." "Benandai," Robert considered, running a thumb along his beard. "And who holds Winterfell? I will not leave Cersei and her bastard cubs unwatched while we ride to glory." "My Lady Catelyn," Ned answered. "She has steel in her heart. Rickard Karstark remains here with 200 swords, as does Lord Manderly's heir Sir Wendell, and the Umbers will leave half their garrison. Let any Lannister plots rise, and you will see the banners of 3 great houses smother them." "Then?" Robert stared into flame, remembering Catelyn at Riverrun. Graceful, poised, yet eyes like riverstone cutting water. He trusted her more than most lords he called friend. "Very well," he said at last. "Make ready. At noon we gather the great lords for oath and plan. By dusk, the forges will need run hotter than dragon breath. I want spearheads and mail links enough to blanket the godswood." "Nena trusted in." He paused, then lifted his gaze. "And Ned, your boy Bran, how fares he?" Ned's face softened. Lewin says fever broke near dawn. He still sleeps, but does not shake as before. I thank you for asking. Robert's voice turned rough. Had I known what skulks behind Lannister's smiles earlier, the boy would be hale and running the walls. I cannot mend his spine, friend, but I can make certain he sees justice. Now. Ned stood silent, the crackle and pop of pitch knots the only sound between them. Then he bowed his head and left to set Winterfell into motion. Cersei crouched on the cushioned windowy seat of her solar, unkempt hair spilling over shoulders that had once borne a king's gaze with proud delight. Now the strands clung to tears she would not let fall. She traced the lattice of ironwork framing a narrow glimpse of snowy yard, her fingertip white against cold metal. Outside, 2 Stark guards paced. Beyond them, a third held back a pair of snarling direwolves, whose red eyes never strayed far from her door. Her gown was still the emerald velvet she had worn last night, though the hem was smeared with ash from Ned Stark's hearth. No maid had been permitted inside. Cersei tasted humiliation like bile, but it was the deeper terror that tightened her throat. One she would sooner die than admit even to herself. They know. They have always known, and now they have proof. Footsteps. She straightened as Maester Lewin, gray robes dusted by falling snow, stepped within. 2 guards lingered behind. "Your Grace," he greeted, voice gentle. "I come to tend." Cersei's laugh was a cracked shell. "Tend? Am I some doe with broken leg? The king sends his leech to bleed me?" Lewin set a steaming bowl on a small table. It smelled of sage and honey. "The king sends nourishment. You have not eaten, and grief starves the mind as well as the body." She eyed the bowl, hunger stabbing sharp, but pride sharper. "If Robert wants me strong, it is to stand trial." Lewin lifted a spoon. "Or to negotiate, perhaps. His Grace has not declared your fate. Until he does, you remain Queen Consort of the 7 Kingdoms." He offered a spoonful. After a heartbeat, Cersei accepted, closing her lips around warm broth. Salt and herbs eased the hollow in her belly. She allowed 3 more sips, then waved him off. "Tell me one thing in return, Maester," she said. "Your chain marks you wise. If a lioness is caged, does she not claw at the bars?" He tilted his head. "A lioness may indeed. Yet she judges the strength of bars and the weakness of jailer first. I advise you measure both carefully." "Then?" Cersei's green eyes glinted. Wise words. She turned back to the window. When Lewin withdrew, she exhaled slowly, mind racing. "Robert thinks me contained, but men forget a cage is only as strong as the bones that guard it. And bones may snap with a single well-placed strike. If I cannot reach Jaime, I must reach father. And if ravens fail..." An image flashed. Arya Stark running the halls, small feet, quick and quiet. The younger wolf pup carried needlework lessons she despised, always slipping out by lesser corridors. Cersei had noted her patterns, as any hunter studies prey. Perhaps a girl might bear a secret message if offered the right prize, or threatened with the right fear. Cersei's lips curved. Wolves could be baited as well as lions, provided the meat smelled sweet. Deep beneath the castle, Jaime Lannister sat on cold stone, back against a wall slick with moss. A sputtering torch cast feeble light, painting him a patchwork of gold hair and grim shadow. His wrists were ringed in fetters attached by chain to an iron ring, the length just enough to let him stand, but not stride. He idly tested the slack, counting links. 10 full, 1/2. Each link thick as a man's thumb. Ancient file could gnaw through in a month. A dagger in an hour. He had neither. Sir Barristan Selmy stood beyond the bars with helm beneath one arm, expression grave. "Sir Jaime," he began, then paused as if the rest stuck like bone in his throat. Jaime gave a wry smile. "Sir Barristan," he replied. Affectation polished as tourney silver. "Have they finally sent you to read charges, or to demand I forsake all claim to the Kingsguard?" "The latter holds no meaning now," Barristan said. "Your vows were to protect the king." You stand accused of defiling his bloodline. Jaime barked laughter that echoed off dank walls. Defiled. His line was defiled the instant Robert seized Lyanna from Rhaegar's pyre, and made the realm bow to a drunkard's crown. That is treasonous speech. Treason? Jaime leaned forward. We dance words while dragons wheel overhead. Robert's reign is dragonless. Sir Barristan. Yet he clings to every dragon's sin, lust, pride, wrath. Should I be judged for giving Cersei what Robert never could? Barristan's jaw tightened. You speak lightly of incest. I speak lightly of everything, Jaime said, voice soft. Except Cersei. The old knight's eyes flitted to torchlight, as though seeking absolution there. You have been offered wine? A cup, watered near to nothing. Jaime shrugged. Your mercy is noted. I offer counsel too, Barristan said. Confess before the day is out. Lannister gold may ease your cell, but no coin loosens rope when hanging time comes. Confess. Jaime laughed again, bitter now. To what? Loving my sister. That crime I will sing from rooftops. To birthing children? I would father them anew if time allowed. To plotting Bran's fall? I did not push the boy. He climbed, he fell. The memory flickered, Bran's wide eyes catching him, and Cersei mid-embrace. Jaime's hand flexed, feeling again the half-hearted shove that sent the child plummeting. I did push him. I did. But confessing buys nothing if Robert thirsts for my head. Barristan exhaled. When dawn breaks tomorrow, the king means to address Winterfell's court. Be prepared, Sir Jaime. He turned and strode away, boots scraping stone. Jaime watched the torchlight shrink, leaving him with darkness and chain rattle as his only companions. In that darkness, he weighed possibilities. The guards were loyal Stormlanders. Bribes might fail. Escape required either inside aid or outside chaos. But Tywin's chaos was always methodical. Father would gather armies, yet distance robbed speed. If Cersei could pass a message, perhaps a swift-moving sellsword band might strike Winterfell from east or west, a diversion to free him. He felt the dagger shape of that hope, cold yet sharp. Survive long enough, and lions always hunt again. Across Winterfell's yard, Jon Snow paused mid-stride when he glimpsed two Lannister guards stripped of their crimson cloaks and marched away at spear point. A hush rippled among the watchmen. Ghost padded at Jon's heel, fur pricking as though sensing more than human eyes. What's happened? Jon asked Donal Noy, who supervised blacksmiths hauling coal. King's order, Noy grunted. Crimson out, gray in. Seems the stag don't fancy lion company today. A thrill and dread knotted Jon's stomach. He thought of Bran, pale and still as freshly fallen snow. Of the Queen's strained smile at supper 2 nights before. Something rotten had burst, spilling its stink into every corner. He hurried toward the keep, but before he reached the second stair, Robb stepped from a door, face pale under auburn hair. Jon, his brother breathed. Father wants us armed and ready. All of us. Even you. Why? Jon pressed. Robb glanced around. Only stone and distant smith hammers listened. Mother said the king discovered monstrous treason. Jaime is chained below. The queen confined above. Father thinks Tywin will march. Jon's pulse quickened. Then we ride south? Soon, Robb said. Father means to leave Winterfell with the king. He named me to stay and guard Bran. Robb tried to smile, but worry weighed him. He says I must be lord in his place. You will be a good lord, Jon said, gripping his brother's forearm. Yet part of him ached with envy. The chance to ride alongside Ned and Robert on true campaign. Snow melting under horses' hooves, banners snapping. Honor to be won. Lay before Robb, not him. He swallowed longing. I'll help you hold Winterfell, he vowed. A bastard has his uses. Robb's grip tightened in gratitude. Then they went to gather arms. Jon strapping leather, Robb donning mail, both moving with the quiet purpose of men who understand their childhoods, ended sometime during the long northern night. Tyrion Lannister guided his mountain pony along the snow-dusted trail between the Hunter's Forest and Winterfell's stone gate. He had spent the night in a crofter's barn south of the castle, content to let the court's clamor settle away from his ears. Wine, dice, and a willing tavern mistress had warmed the hours. Now a hard ride returned him, cheeks bitten pink by the icy wind. Yet the sight that met him at the gate chilled more than weather. Stark spears crossed to bar his path, archers lined above, and a freshly hoisted banner of the direwolf, flying solitary without the royal stag beside it. Tyrion raised an eyebrow. Is Winterfell closed to guests today? Sir Roderick Castle emerged, face grave. Lord Tyrion, he said, by order of King Robert, you are requested to remain outside the walls until summoned. Requested or required? Tyrion asked dryly. Roderick's whiskers bristled. Required. This smells less like request than detention. May I know why? No. His Grace will speak soon, Roderick said. Until then, please do not press me further. Tyrion studied him. Roderick's eyes held regret, but his stance remained firm. Something catastrophic indeed. Tyrion nodded, reined around, and rode to a small copse out of Arrowrange. He dismounted beneath a withered oak and produced a silver flask. Father once said Winterfell is a fortress built to endure 1,000 winters, he muttered. But could it withstand one Lannister's curiosity? He sipped, contemplating. Chains for Jaime, a cage for Cersei. The possibilities spun dizzy as drink. If so, I'd best choose sides before sides choose me. He cast a glance upslope, where direwolves paced along the curtain wall. Not today. Today diplomacy was as frozen as the pond behind him. Tyrion settled under the oak and waited, eyes sharp, ears sharper, counted heartbeats between the hammer blows of distant forges forging war's first notes. Noon arrived in cold brilliance, sun a pale coin sliding behind shredded clouds. In the great hall, the high table had been cleared of trenchers and cups. In their place lay parchment rolls, wax seals, and Ned Stark's long-handled greatsword ice, its Valyrian steel blade reflecting torchlight with black-red ripples. Robert stood behind the trestle, one hand on the hilt, the other resting flat on oath scrolls. Lords great and modest assembled. Galbart and Robin Glover, stout faces somber. Wendell Manderly in sea-green velvet, big enough for 2 lean men. Mage Mormont clad in dyed bear hide. Soft-spoken Roderick Risewell, bent near as old barley. Dour Roose Bolton, his pale eyes missing nothing. Southron banners mingled there also. Sir Barristan representing the crown, Lord Caron of Nightsong with a retinue of marchers, even Sir Courtenay Penrose on Renly's behalf. Armored shoulders jostled beneath the hammering cadence of heartbeats. Robert raised a hand. Silence fell like heavy snow. Lords of the North, he thundered, voice raw from sleepless hours yet carrying to every rafter, and lords sworn to houses who stand with honor. Treason's coil has choked the heart of our realm. I have uncovered a monstrous betrayal within my own bed, incest that birthed false heirs to the Iron Throne. Gasps, whispered prayers, muttered curses. Robert let them ripple, then stilled the room with sharp gesture. I, Robert of House Baratheon, do here disinherit Joffrey Myrcella and Tommen Lannister, proclaiming them issue not of Baratheon blood, but of forbidden congress between Cersei and Jaime Lannister, twin children of Lord Tywin. Roose Bolton's lips curved the faintest inch. Wendell Manderly crossed himself. Meg Mormont's growl echoed her namesake beast. Robert pressed on. Cersei lies under guard. Jaime languishes in chains. Tywin may answer by raven or by sword. I expect the latter. Therefore I call my banners, and those of every lord loyal to true kingship. We march south to secure the capital, to seat rightful heir upon the Iron Throne, and to purge Lannister corruption root and leaf. Nenderall. Rightful heir, asked Roose, voice soft as falling ash. Whom does your grace name? Robert's gaze slid to Ned. Ned stepped forward, the hush turning taut enough to strangle. The last proven scion of House Baratheon sits upon Dragonstone, he said. Stannis, true-born brother to the king. He is lawful successor. A murmur of surprise. some admiration, some misgiving. Robert's face twitched, but he inclined his head. Stannis is iron, and iron is what the realm needs, yet he lacks hearts for friends. Still, hearts may be won. Honor is harder coin. He straightened. Until Stannis claims the throne, I remain king, and my word is law. Are there any who deny me? Silence. Then swear. One by one, each lord approached ice, laying hands upon cold steel to repeat words spoken when Aegon's sons first sought fealty. By earth and water, by bronze and iron, by ice and fire, I swear. Their voices wove into a solemn dirge for peace lost. When Roose Bolton's pale fingers touched the blade, Ned watched with wary eyes, remembering whispers of Dreadfort cruelty. Yet the oath rang clear as any. When the last sworn man stepped back, Robert lifted ice and drove its tip into the trestle top, anchoring it upright like a grim banner. So bound, he proclaimed, tonight we feast to sharpen courage. At dawn we ride. Feast proved a relative term. Platters of venison, thick stews, wheels of sharp white cheese, more food than most small folk saw in a season. But conversation remained hushed, the usual laughter consumed by foreboding. Robert forced ale down, though less than half the horns he drained when first arriving north. Ned sipped watered wine and spoke quietly with Robb, instructing him on totaling stores, shoring Wintertown's palisade, and doubling patrols along the King's Road. Sansa sat near Catelyn, eyes wide yet sparkling with forbidden thrill at the talk of queens and coups. Arya picked at pie, gaze darting like a cat's, already planning mischief. Bran's seat remained empty, a silent reminder of the night that changed everything. Catelyn bent close to Ned. Must Bran be told before we leave? Not yet, he whispered. Let him heal free of burdens. There will be time later. Though in his heart, he feared such time would grow short for them all. Toward the meal's close, Theon Greyjoy swaggered between benches to pour a fresh horn for Robert. Your Grace, he said with hostage's cheer, if it pleases, I beg you grant me leave to ride at your van. Greyjoy blood owes Lannister none, and iron-born axes strike swift. Robert clapped him on the shoulder. A bold lad. He tossed back the ale. Take 20 good riders and sweep the road south tomorrow. Scout ahead for Tywin's scouts. Bring me prisoners, and I'll show you a king's gratitude. Theon's grin flashed white. Ace, you command. He strode off, picturing glory to write ballads, and perhaps free his house from its Bentwalkney status. Ned watched with mixed feelings. Theon was loyal, aye, but reckless. Putting him on the road first meant risk, yet risk breeds men or graves. Ned finished his wine and stood. The feast dissolved into small knots of strategy. Lords conferring on supply wagons, sergeants listing spear counts, smiths haggling over raw iron stores. Outside, fires burned in forges and training yards alike. Sparks joining newborn stars. That night, as moonlight silvered snowfall, a slender figure slipped from a side door in the guest tower. Arya Stark wore a rough-spun cloak and carried needles sheathed at her thigh. She had overheard enough to know villains lurked inside Winterfell itself. Guards had been posted on every stair, but Arya recalled secret steps Maester Luwin used when feed rats nested in the walls. Bare feet made no sound as she darted through a narrow service corridor. She found the passage that ran behind her father's library, half the height of a normal hall. Cobwebs brushed her cheeks. Distant drafts smelled of old stone. Needle trembled in her grip, not from fear but anticipation. Bran had fallen because someone wanted him silent. Arya meant to find who. Beyond a small wooden hatch, she could spy the Queen's corridor, guarded by 2 Stark men and 2 wolves lounging in shadows. Too many. She crept on until torchlight glowed through slats ahead. Voices murmured, one low and guttural, the other husky with wine. Door opens at midnight, said the husky voice. Only a turn of the key, 2 breaths, then gone. A clink of coin followed. Arya's heart pounded. Someone plotting rescue. She pressed eye to a crack. Cerberus Blount of the Kingsguard leaned against wall, sipping from flagon. Opposite him stood a Stark guard whose badge she did not know, perhaps newly come from Deepwood or Barrowton. Coins passed between hands. Boros's words slurred. Unlock cell, fetch our knight, and gold triples. Arya nearly burst through hatch, but sense steadied her. She slid needle through thin gap, till point rested on Stark guard's calf. She drew it across flesh lightly. The guard jerked, hissed, slapped at leg as though bit by rat. Boros frowned. Arya flicked again, cutting deeper. The guard stumbled back. 7 hells, he yelped. Blood-soaked trouser leg. Boros straightened. Quiet, fool. My leg. The guard gasped. Arya yanked needle away, unseen. The guard's eyes darted to wall. Suspicion sprouting. Boros shoved him. Meet me tomorrow midnight. He stalked off. The guard limped after. Arya waited until footsteps faded, then crawled back the way she'd come, heart racing with triumph. She must tell father. A plot to free the Kingslayer. Proof the Lannisters would not wait for war to begin. Ghosts and gods would help them if Jaime escaped. Hours before dawn, Robert sat alone in the crypt beneath Winterfell, torchlight painting shadows of dead Starks on cold walls. He knelt before Lyanna's statue, the stone maiden's features carved gentle and sad. Snow dusted her brow. Robert brushed it away, thumb rough over chiseled cheek. Sweetling, he whispered. I avenge you poorly, and love you still. He bowed his head. Footsteps. He did not move as Ned approached. They stood in stillness until Robert spoke. Do you think she died quickly? Ned's answer came quiet. I think she died as she lived. Bravely. Robert shut his eyes. A murder we never proved, a crown we never wanted, and now a war we cannot avoid. Ned placed a hand on his shoulder. We do what we must. Robert rose, muscles aching. Must. The word will coffin me yet. He turned, his sigh blooming white in cold air. Come. The realm waits. They climbed from darkness into gray morning where horns already sounded across courtyards, banners spun, and snowflakes drifted like slow ashes ready to feed the forge of war. Along the King's Road, 2 days' ride south, a courier galloped hard, Lannister lion streaming crimson behind. He bore a raven scroll unseen, folded inside a glove. Cersei's words penned in snake-quick script, promising titles and lands to any sellsword captain who reached Winterfell first. Beyond the bleak barrows of the northern hills, half-starved mercenary bands roved, hungry as Winterlian wolves. And between them and Winterfell lay only wind, snow, and Theon Greyjoy's patrol still untested by true bloodshed. Fate gathered its threads. The cold iron of sons sworn to fathers, the hot gold of fathers coveting crowns, the soft silver of children dreaming under fur blankets. Snow fell thicker, muffling hoofbeats, hiding tracks. In that hush, the realm took a breath like glacial seas drawing tide. Deep, slow, inevitable. Snow churned under hooves as Robert's host rode from Winterfell at dawn on the 3rd morning. 500 horse and near 2,000 foot, spears bristling, standards snapping. Black stag, gray direwolf, flayed man, bear of Mormont, green seahorse of Manderley, threaded in solemn parade through the gate. The king rode at head with Ned on his right, Sir Barristan on left, and a shield-bearer flying the crowned stag banner behind. Armor gleamed dully beneath sleet, breath plumed from war horses like dragon smoke. Catelyn stood upon the wall with Sansa, Arya, and young Rickon clinging to skirts. Robb perched tall beside her, lordly even at 17, though his eyes shone wet as he raised fist over heart. Jon Snow lingered just behind, cloak whipping. Ghost sat at his heel. They watched the host dwindle into white distance, hooves fading to muffled drumbeat. Inside Cersei's window, the queen's green gaze traced the same departing column. She pressed hand to cold pain. The king's line now rides to its doom or triumph, she thought. But whichever wins, a lion always feasts on aftermath. She glanced at a folded scrap stitched into her sleeve. The second copy of her message, ready if first failed. Even a cage in snow held cracks enough for venom to seep. Below, in crypt damp darkness, Jaime Lannister sat cross-legged, breathing slow, counting chain links like rosary beads. He listened for distant shriek of forge or clank of portcullis, ears attuned for stray note meaning chaos above. When the castle shifted with the march's departure, mortar dust fluttered from ceiling arch. Jaime smiled thinly. A castle half emptied is a castle half taken. In the Lord's Solar, Roose Bolton penned a letter by weak candlelight, sealing it with pink wax stamped flayed man. The script wound like blood trickle. My Lord Father, gather levies quiet as owls. Ride when moon turns black. The wolf leads south. The lion may bleed. Dreadfort's hour approaches. Far off on windswept hills, the courier reigned before a ringfort where torchlight danced. Scar-cheeked sellswards emerged, blades bare. The rider held out glove, gold glinted within. Across those wild miles, Cersei's promise leapt like spark to tinder. And on the king's road south, Robert Baratheon bowed his head against fleeting wind. Thoughts knotted at cresting edge of memory and fate. He raised a horn, blew a single deep note. The host lengthened stride. War, once whispered, now walk. Evening of that day, Arya crouched in the shadowed passage behind the library again. Clutching a parchment lord, Stark had commanded her to carry. Father's curt scrawl promised pardon in return for truth. If she could catch the treacherous guard before midnight, perhaps a confession would fall faster than snow. Needle's grip felt smooth in her palm. She had practiced the water dancer's steps with Sirio's whispered lessons echoing. Swift as deer, quiet as shadow, fear cuts deeper than swords. Fear indeed gnawed her belly, but anger tempered it. Bran still dreamt fever dreams. Arya would be sword in his stead. Torches flickered. Footsteps echoed. A man limping. Arya pressed to wall as the same guard limped into view. Fresh bandage on calf. He halted. Scanned hall, muttered curses. No Kingsguard tonight. Perhaps Boros feared discovery. The guard pulled purse from belt, counted coins. Arya darted behind him. Smelled stale A. Placed cold point at his spine. Move, she hissed. He stiffened. Who? Dropped the purse. He obeyed. Coins clinked. Hands behind head. He obeyed slower. Arya nudged parchment into his sash. Read. She whispered. Or bleed. He unfolded, eyes flicking over lines. Replaced bandaged leg trembled. I didn't push the boy, he croaked. Speak louder. I only took their coin to unlock cell, he said, voice shaking. No harm, just a key. Please tell Lord Stark. Nah. Tell him yourself, Arya said, stepping aside. Two Stark guards rounded corner, drawn by her earlier whistle. They seized the traitor. Arya exhaled, shoulders dropping. One guard nodded in thanks. They led the prisoner off. She sheathed needle, heart still thudding but swelling with pride. I played cat to catch rat. Father will see, I am no lady sewing. She almost skipped down passage. Above, moon slipped behind clouds, but castle torches glowed brighter as if sensing the coming night required more fire. Across the yard, inside Queen's chamber, Cersei traced fresh crimson along her wrist with shard of mirror, just enough to slick fingers. She pressed bloody print on parchment scrap. A promise is blood. Then sewed it into seam of borrowed maid's cloak with practiced ease. The maid curtsied low, fear-paled, then hurried out a servant's door. Deary wolves howled somewhere, but the maid slipped unnoticed past guards busy with captured traitors' cries. Small deeds, Cersei thought, often yield great chaos. She bandaged wrist and allowed herself a thin, triumphant smile. The next dawn shattered on Winterfell like glass. Horns blared frantic. Ned Stark's guard burst into Catelyn's bedchamber shouting, "My lady, intruders inside walls, western quarter, and prisoners fled." Catelyn sprang from bed, hair unbraided. "Who?" The Kingslayer, the guard panted. Released, Queen's corridor breached. 2 Stormlander sentries slain. Blood iced Catelyn's veins. Bran. She breathed. Take 10 men, bar Bran's room. I ride to Godswood. Arya trained there at sunrise. Steel clanged in corridors. Catelyn hurried along, ordering every man she passed. Jon Snow appeared, sword drawn. Robb behind him with full mail. We heard, Robb said grimly. Theon's patrol returned. They captured Sellsword scouts 5 miles out. Greyjoy claims hundreds more follow. Find Jaime, Catelyn commanded, then seized Jon's arm. Protect your brother. Jon nodded. Sprinted off. Chaos rippled. Bells rang, women shrieked, young squires raced to arrow slits. Cersei remained locked, but her maid vanished. Footprints led past kennel where dogs lay slit-throated. A horse stolen from stable. Gatehouse corpse found. Portcullis winchman stabbed. Jaime's cell empty. Fetters cut by hacksaw. A rope dangled from murder hole to dry moat. As midday sun crested, riders sighted a lone figure 2 leagues south. Golden hair bright even at distance, guiding a swift horse across snow-dusted flats toward wooded hills. Pursuers spurred after. In Castle Yard, Ned felt weight of war double. Sound general mustering, he ordered. We ride tonight, ready or no. Catelyn approached, Bran's direwolf summer trailing. Bran is safe, she assured. But wolves howl, as if world's ending. Perhaps they are, Ned said. Of gates, banners sagged in wind. Direwolf, stag, and flayed man, all seemed to droop like weary sentinels. Yet somewhere on the road south, Robert's host marched unaware that behind them a lion roamed free again. A dreadfort raven winged forth, and winter's Game of Thrones had begun anew with fresh blood already staining the snow. And as twilight spread, Maester Luwin climbed the rookery tower, lanterns swinging, to find his ravens restless. One white-winged bird, rare, omenio heavy, pecked at its latch. He opened cage. The raven settled on his arm, croaking a single broken syllable. Blood. Luwin shivered, set quill to parchment, and wrote a single line he prayed arrived before swords rang on Trident's banks. The lion is loose, and winter hunts him. The quill scraped, ink dried. He bound the scroll, tied it to White Raven's leg, and sent it through swirling snow, north wind snatching it southward, the last fragile hope that warning might outrun war. Ka. Steel shuddered like thunder along the King's Road, as Robert's column pressed south through the neck. Banners cracking in the inland wind. 2 days of forced march left hooves blood raw, and men tight-lipped with fatigue. But no soul dared slow his pace. Somewhere behind them rode rumor of Jaime's flight. Robert had received the raven at dusk, 3 terse lines from Catelyn, and torn the parchment in half without a word. He had only spurred his courser harder, the great destrier spraying mud over the standard-bearers scrambling to keep formation. That night no campfires burned. They bivouacked in blackness. Wolves howling from the great fenlands as if to herald doom. Ned rode alongside the king at dawn, gray-cloaked against bone-tracking damp. Neither had slept. Robert's eyes were dark, his knuckles white on his hammer haft. Each breath left frost on his beard. Only after the first hour's silence did Ned speak. When we reach Moat Cailin, we should rest the horses, he said. They will founder if we drive them past the causeway at this pace. Robert answered with a single grunt. Then after another mile muttered, Jaime rides unburdened by wagons or foot. He knows every shortcut barring flight itself. If he reaches River Run before us, Tywin gains a blade at both our backs. He tugged the reins, bringing the host to a slow trot. But you're right. Dead mounts win no wars. An hour, no more. Men dismounted, while squires loosened girths. Hooves hissed in the mossy bog. Ned paced the reed-choked bank of a black pool, counting the dour faces of Manderly spearmen, the hollow eyes of Stormlander archers pale with hunger. At his elbow, Sir Barristan surveyed the troops with the grim precision of a ledger-keeper. They will hold, the Lord Commander said quietly, as though reading Ned's anxiety. Fear sometimes welds men stronger than pride. A forge without rest melts steel, Ned replied. But fear keeps it brittle. Barristan inclined his head. Neither contested the point further. Across the shallow water, Theon Greyjoy splashed up on a panting courser, his sable cloak torn and spattered. "My lords," he shouted, boots churning muck. Scouts sighted sellsword companies south of Maidenpool. Red banners, no heraldry. A ragged sunburst. "They've struck small farms, taking grain and horses. 20 at least ride ahead as outriders, the rest follow." Robert's eyes narrowed. Sellswords do not wander the crownlands by chance. He swung into the saddle. "Up, all?" Spar rose, close ranks. "We reach Moat Cailin before nightfall." "Now." They crossed the causeway by late afternoon, wooden planks slick with marsh slime. The ruined basalt towers of Moat Cailin loomed like broken teeth. Yet the stony choke point offered dire protection. Robert ordered a skeleton garrison to hold the neck, while his vanguard took the western spur road, marching on the faster upland track. Ned lingered to set the defense. He'd chosen Roderick Glover to command 60 spears, plus archers posted on each leaning tower. If the sellswords attempted the marsh road, they would meet a rain of quarrels before they splashed half a mile. Night settled, pressing fog over the moss flats. Ned's column resumed with torches hooded to avoid distant eyes, but the sodden path slowed wagons. Mired wheels forced pauses. Curses rose, and once a draft horse snapped a leg. Ned ordered the beast put down, then helped haul the grain cart free himself. By midnight, they covered only 10 more leagues. Dawn found them at Fever River's crossing, every man crusted with mud like grave clay. 2 ravens arrived together as tents were struck. The first bore Catelyn's seal. Jaime's trail vanished in Wolfswood, likely angled south along the White Knife. The second carried Stannis' blunt reply from Dragonstone. Acknowledgement of bastardy accusation, ironclad claim to the throne. Command that Robert arrest all Lannisters at once and send Myrcella and Tommen as hostages. Robert read the message aloud amid his assembled captains. Murmurs rippled. Some men shifted uncomfortably at Stannis' imperious tone. Robert crumpled the parchment. "My brother forgets himself," he growled. But his ire bowed to exhaustion. "Still, the realm will need a king if I fall. Better Stannis than the Golden Goat." The march pressed on. 3 leagues past the Fever, scouts reported a smashed hamlet, huts scorched, a lone well poisoned with dead livestock. Survivors whispered of men in half armor, dyed crimson, faces hidden by scarves, swords for hire who spoke Valyrian among themselves. They had ransacked in Cersei's name, leaving small scrolls nailed to doorposts. "The Queen commands winter be red with king's blood." Robert glared at one such rag, then tossed it onto a dung fire. "They think words carve flesh," he snarled. "We'll show them what a warhammer does." Ned felt unease burrow deeper. Cersei's reach outpaced Raven's. Lannister coin had slipped leashes even this far north. Winterfell's walls yet stood, but sellsword talons closed in like ice cracks creeping through stone. He longed for a raven bearing safe news of Bran's steady breath, Arya's reckless grin, but none came this day. He drafted letters each night by firelight. Orders to Galbart Glover to secure White Harbor's fleet, to Lady Mage to send bear-cloaked outriders east, to Maester Luwin requesting pulse of Winterfell's morale. He sealed them with streaks of white wax and dispatched birds into sleeting dark, while Robert paced, sharpening the hammer's edge that needed no sharpening. On the 6th night since leaving Winterfell, Ned's dreams carried him to broken towers washed by ghostly waves. He saw Lyanna on her bier of blue roses, her eyes open and sorrowful. She whispered, "Promise me, Ned. Promise me our son shall know his name." He woke sweating, heart hammering. Dawn's pale light seeped through canvas. Outside, the camp shook with frantic horns. Bolton riders galloped in from the southern picket, captains shouting as they dismounted. "Raiders on the baggage lines," one cried, blood flecking his cheek. Crimson sunbursts. 40, maybe more. Cut down sentries at moonset. Ned seized his sword, throwing aside blankets. Robert already thundered by on his destrier, hammer high. "Stormlanders with me," he roared, barreling toward the rear camp. Ned sprinted to mount his gray gelding and followed, Barristan at wet gallop beside him. They crested a low ridge to chaos. Torches flared where wagons burned. Shouts mingled with the scream of dying horses. Sellswords in mismatched mail hacked at panicked teamsters. One leaped onto a rum cart, slitting barrel ropes so fiery spirit poured into mud. Another cast a torch, and a sheet of red flame whooshed skyward. Robert bellowed like storm surge, driving straight at the raider captain. Tall, scar-cheeked, a red scarf masking half his face. The man spun, scimitar glittering under stars, but Robert's hammer struck with sickening crunch, caving helm and skull. Sellswords reeled at the sight. Barristan's white cloak flashed, his blade severing a raider's wrist before whirling to parry two blades at once. Ned plunged into the nearest knot, ice sweeping wide, its Valyrian edge slicing through leather and rib as if parting rushes. He felt blood spatter warm across cold cheeks. Muscle memory alone guided his horse through the melee. Bolton men arrived, pink-flayed men on shields indistinct in low light. Grim silhouettes hacking with brutal economy. Within moments, the attack crumpled, survivors fleeing into reeds. Robert's host pursued only far enough to ensure retreat. The bog was treacherous and dawn near. They gathered tally: 9 royal men dead, dozens wounded, 6 wagons burnt, including half the arrow supplies. Robert wiped gore from his face, breath steaming. "First blood," he growled. "Paid for treachery." Yet Ned saw anger turn inward. Self-chastising for leaving Train too lightly guarded. As healers tended wounded, Ned ordered scouts to shadow any retreating Sellswords. Theon volunteered, eager to restore reputation after his patrol's lapse. He set off with 10 horse before sunrise, tracks vanishing into marsh mist. The battle left an aftertaste of rust and smoke that lingered all day. Ned organized surviving wagons, redistributed grain, rationed mead. Barristan drilled green boys on spear walls until arms quivered. Manderly cooks turned slaughtered horses into thick broth to keep chill at bay. In the quiet between commands, Ned caught Robert staring southeast, past haze of distant foothills, toward a memory of red mountains no northerner could see. The king muttered half aloud, "If Jaime rides to Tywin, then Tywin rides to Jaime. And where they join, rivers run scarlet." Far to the south, in the shadow of Casterly Rock, the lions sharpened claws on anvil and parchment alike. Tywin Lannister stood in the echoing Hall of Heroes, marble lions flanking him in silent procession. Ravens fluttered overhead, black wings rattling in cavernous rafters. 3 missives lay open on a polished obsidian table, one from Cersei heavy with desperation and bloodprint, one from a mercenary captain named Mycos Florant, demanding triple the promised gold, and one from Roose Bolton, coated in coy flattery and veiled threat. "Your Grace, Winterfell's vault grows thin as last season's onion, yet Dreadfort keeps her store as fat as summer bo." Tywin read each twice, then ignited them in a silver brazier. Flames licked scripts into ash. He turned to Sir Adam Marbrand, crimson cloak sweeping mosaic floor. "Send riders. I will raise 10,000 from the Westerlands, march to Harrenhal within the month. Issue word that any sellsword company not already under contract will be paid double the crown's rate if they join before our host departs." Bow. "Shall I summon Lord Brax and Lord Crakehall?" "All of them." Tywin clasped hands behind back. "But order Jaime to move north alone, cutting east of the Trident. He must arrive in King's Landing first, rally the Red Keep Guard before Robert can reclaim the city. If he meets resistance on the roads, he will burn it." Marbrand hesitated. "The Riverlords may hinder a lone knight's passage." Tywin's gaze frosted. "Jaime will not ride alone. You, Marbrand, will escort him with 500 heavy horse. Pick men with fast mounts and hearts devoid of scruples." Marbrand bowed, relief and dread mingled, then strode away. Tywin exhaled once sharply. "A Lannister's debts are paid in gold," he murmured to the silent hall. "But betrayals are paid in red." He turned toward the tall doors, the clang of his heels echoing like distant drums. Soon the realm would choke on the price of Robert's accusation. Jaime himself had reached the banks of the Blue Fork by then, riding a weathered palfrey stripped of royal harness. His wound from Winterfell's kennel scrap, an arrow graze on thigh, throbbed each gallop, but he pressed on. 2 sellsword outrunners found him near dusk, lances leveled. He greeted them with jaunty salute, golden hair plastered to brow by sleet. "Tell your captain a better contract awaits beneath the lion's banner," he drawled. They hesitated at his easy arrogance, but when he tossed a gold stag spinning through air, they followed him south willingly, as hounds scenting fresh hare. At every village Jaime gathered whispers of Robert's progress. The king had crossed Moat Cailin, clashed with bandits, paused at Middlebarrow Holdfast. He calculated distances on the fly, measuring which river crossing to avoid, which farmstead still held loyalist grain. By 6th twilight he rode into the market square of Harrenhal, and slipped into the castle's outer ward disguised as a hedge knight named Sir Ilan of the Evening Water. Guards barely glanced at his patched cloak, busy stockpiling barrels of lamp oil, under command of Lord Janos Slint-Eye. Jaime found a dark corner near shattered tower base, leaning on crumbling stone while gauging the pitiful state of Harrenhal's garrison. The great fortress could swallow a city, yet only 400 city watch scurried about, their orange cloaks soaked and mud-fringed. Slint barked orders, but discipline sagged. Jaime smirked. These were foes he could outride in sleep. He slipped away before dawn, leaving not a footprint. While great hosts rolled south like storm clouds, Tyrion Lannister remained encamped beneath the same withered oak outside Winterfell's gate, ice crisping his beard. He had counted 17 changes of guard, 23 subtle shifts in patrol routes, a meticulous log etched in his mind. On the 12th morning, he awoke to a snowfall heavier than any yet this year. White banks smothered the King Road, but above the gatehouse bell tolled once, a signal reserved for visitors of import. Roderick Castle rode out shortly after on a rangy bay, flanked by 2 gray-cloaked archers. He reined before Tyrion, clearing his throat. "Lord Tyrion, by Lady Stark's order, you are invited within Winterfell to speak on terms of mutual benefit." Tyrion cracked a smile. "To last, courtesy again. I was beginning to doubt hospitality north of the neck." He mounted his shaggy hill pony, following Castle through the great arch while drivers shoveled snow aside. The yard pulsed with activity, men painting new shields with direwolves, boys fletching arrows under awnings, women boiling pitch in iron cauldrons. Tyrion sniffed. "Fortifying against a siege." "Against uncertainty," Roderick replied. Inside the great hall, Tyrion found Catelyn, at the high table beside a chair draped in gray wolf pelt. Across from her sat Roose Bolton, hands folded, expression unreadable. Catelyn gestured him nearer. "Lord Tyrion." She began, voice calm but edged. "We require proof of your goodwill. Winterfell is beset by foes sent, if rumors hold true, by your sister." "My sister rarely resists meddling," Tyrion conceded, bowing. "How may I demonstrate goodwill? I lack armies or ravens, only wits. And some would say those are sharpened too well." "Knowledge is sharper still," Roose murmured. "Kingslayer escapes our walls. You share blood. Tell us his road." Tyrion lowered onto a stool. "Jaime rides the swiftest road to political leverage, always. He may seek King's Landing to safeguard the children, or River Run to sway riverlords. If I were him, I would cut east of the mountains, skirt Moonsgrey, then cross Trident at Lord Harroway's town. Fewer toll gates, weak garrisons." He sipped offered ale. "But my brother loves bold strokes. He might attempt the King's Road itself, counting on fear to clear his path." Catelyn studied him, weighing sincerity. "If your counsel helps trap him," she said, "perhaps Lord Eddard will count your debt repaid." Tyrion spread hands. "I would rather repay any debt in coin, my lady, but I comprehend stakes. I will write dispatches to Maester Luwin detailing routes, times, likely inns. You may seal them under your own hand." "Dan?" Roose's thin smile glimmered. "A Lannister pays his debts, or so song says. And a Bolton flays his foes," Tyrion replied pleasantly. "But I trust we remain friends today." Catelyn signaled to guards. "See Lord Tyrion accommodated in the East Tower chamber. And keep watch." She dipped quill in ink, already drafting warnings for Galbart Glover along the White Knife Ford. As Tyrion departed, Roose leaned closer to Catelyn. "He spoke truly," Bolton murmured. "Yet truth is arrow straight only when fletched by self-interest. Watch him." Then he rose and drifted away like pale smoke, boots silent on flagstones. Arya watched the exchange from behind a pillar, needle clutched unseen. She had grown adept at shadow walking, ears open for plots. Tyrion's entrance sparked curiosity. He seemed less serpent than jester, yet jester masks sometimes hid poison. Arya followed at a distance when guards led him to the East Tower, eavesdropping as the dwarf hummed bawdy tunes, counting stair risers aloud in mock boredom. At the landing he paused, palm flat to stone, as if relishing warmth of hearth below. Arya crept closer, ready to flit away if he turned. Without warning, Tyrion spoke, eyes still on guards ahead. "You there, little cat. You follow quiet as mist but smell of wood smoke and wolf fur." Arya froze. He glanced back, one brow raised. "No need to scamper. I have sisters enough. One more phantom trailing my heels won't rattle me." Arya slipped from gloom. Scowling. "You're a prisoner." "I am a guest under guard," he corrected, smile wry. "Guests enjoy conversation. Might I know your name?" Mender widened. "Aerie." She lied by reflex. Tyrion's smile widened as if recognizing falsehood yet indulging it. "Well, Aerie, tell Lady Stark she needn't waste 3 guards. I would sooner drink hot wine by this fireplace than flee into a blizzard." He bowed slightly, then continued upward. Arya watched him vanish through heavy door. She chewed her lip, mind working. Some prisoners rattled their chains. Others filed them. Tyrion seemed to spin his into thread for weaving. She resolved to watch him closer still. South again, Robert's army broke from Willow Marsh onto the rolling heaths of the Green Fork Valley. Dry grass hissed beneath hooves. Scouts ahead signaled smoke plumes nearer each sunrise. Villages raised by the same crimson sun sellswards. The devastation stoked tempers. Men muttered darkly that the Queen's gold cut deeper than Lannister steel. Robert assembled his captains beside a ruined windmill, overlooking a burnt wheat field. Charred husks of grain heads stuck from black soil like skeletal fingers. "We cannot let carrion feast on our supply lines," he said. "Bolton, Caron, Umber. Split your cavalry, sweep east and west. Drive any sellsword you find north toward Moat Cailin. Let them choke on marsh fumes." Roose Bolton bowed with measured grace. "As you command." His eyes gleamed oddly reflective in ashen sun. Ned marked it, but said nothing. Robert then turned to Ned. "You and I take the main road. Harrenhal lies 6 days ahead if we keep pace." Ned agreed, though dread twisted inside. Harrenhal's ghosts were legion, its halls cursed since Aegon's dragons. Robert shrugged curses off as easily as ale foams, but Ned sensed the fortress would magnify every shadow stalking them. That evening they bivouacked on Stone Ridge north of Maidenpool Pass. Ned walked perimeter before sleep, noting sentries alert, fires banked low. On the far edge he found Gendry, the king's unacknowledged bastard, now armor-bearer to Sir Barristan. The tall youth oiled gauntlets, moonlight carving cheekbones. Ned sat beside. "You swing hammer well," he said. Gendry nodded. "Shy. Sir Barristan says I've half my father's arm." He glanced away, as if fearful to name that father. Ned laid a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Skill alone does not measure worth. Temper it with honor, and you will be greater than any forged blade." Gendry's eyes shone. "I'll try, my lord." He returned to work, back straighter. Ned moved on, comforted that some seed of Robert's might yet grow true in rocky soil. Jaime, now escorted by Marbrand's riders, reached the Red Fork only to discover River Run's fords barred by Tully spearmen. Lord Hoster's gout-ridden banner, Captain brandished Stannis' proclamation denouncing Lannister heirs. Jaime grimaced, retreated east under cover of night, and turned wheels through 7 streams into swamps where no herald waited. The detour cost 3 precious days. At Maidenpool, a local lord aligned with House Arryn offered shelter, forcing Marbrand to buy passage with 2 chests of silver. Jaime's patience eroded. He realized Robert's host might converge on Harrenhal first. Denied the King's Road, he pushed horses along forgotten sheep tracks, sleeping in armor, dreaming of Cersei's voice calling from high tower of Red Keep. Inside that same keep, chaos brewed unseen by small folk. Grand Maester Pycelle shook as he poured wine for Lord Petyr Baelish in the small council chamber. Joffrey refuses to leave his chambers, Pycelle lamented. Myrcella weeps without ceasing. Tommen has nightmares of shadow wolves. Varys, plump in mauve silks, fluttered a hand. Children's tears are rivers we shall redirect, he cooed. More urgent is the toothless court, guarding them. With Jaime gone, the Kingsguard command falls to Ser Boros, an unsteady chair. Bender. Littlefinger sipped wine. Opportunity, my friends, rides in empty saddles. If Robert reaches the city declaring bastardy, we must choose sides fast enough to be seen always on the winning one. Varys's smile widened. And which will be the winning side, Lord Baelish? Littlefinger's gray-green eyes danced. It will be the side that pays me twice. Back at Winterfell, snow sheeted the walls so thick that men carved stairs of packed powder. Bran stirred finally to waking lucidity one sunless morning, eyes drifting to the rafters where ravens perched. Maester Luwin wiped tears of relief. Your family rides to keep you safe, the Maester whispered. Bran's voice was faint. I dreamt of a 3-eyed crow, he murmured. It told me to fly. Luwin hushed him. But in dark corners of the castle, old Nan cross-stitched direwolf sigils and muttered prophecies of winged shadows watching men and monsters alike. Catelyn spent daylight hours in council, nights at Bran's bedside. Anxiety carved hollows under her eyes, yet determination braced her shoulders. She sent ravens to White Harbor, urging Lord Wyman to blockade the Bight against any ship bearing Lannister colors, and another to bear Island commanding Maeg's daughters to harry sellsword camps along the stony shore. Each dawn she donned a mail shirt beneath her wool gown, though no one but Catelyn and her maid knew. Arya pressed needle's point into straw dummies every sunset, stabbing until arms burned. Sansa knelt beside Septa Mordain twice a day, praying for King Robert's swift victory and safe return of their father, though her private prayers asked also that Joffrey might someday stand tall again in her eyes. Jon Snow drilled Winterfell's half-trained guards with Grennan and Pip, forging them into archers worthy of Night's Watch tales. And in the East Tower, Tyrion penned schemes by moon oil, strings of logic connecting like cobweb threads, ways to sever Cersei's reach and perhaps salvage a realm tearing at heart seams. 5 days after the baggage raid, Robert's and Ned's vanguards sighted the smoking towers of Harrenhal in dawn haze. The lake around the fortress steamed like a cauldron, mist clinging low to scorched walls. Blackened towers loomed, roofless, still pockmarked by dragon flames centuries past. Robert halted the line at a ridge, eyes scanning ramparts. No banners, he noted, yet smoke from hearths. Ned lifted spyglass. City watchdots patrolled gates. An orange pennant drooped above gatehouse. Lord Slint claims stewardship, Ned said. But holds for whom? Crown? Gold? Himself? Robert spat. We're about to find out. He ordered horns blown. Columns advanced, shields raised, archers knocked. Before they reached Outer Dyke, the massive gates groaned open. Serianos Slint rode forth under flag of parley. Robert met him halfway, Ned and Barristan at his flanks. Slint bowed deep, though sweat beaded his brow in chill air. Your Grace, he wheezed. The Red Keep remains ever your loyal stewards. Harrenhal opens to you. Robert's gaze bored holes. Where is my Kingsguard? Where the imp? Where the gold cloaks I pay to guard my children? Slint swallowed. Your Grace, Sir Jaime passed through but 2 nights ago. Through? Ned echoed. Did he fly? He departed under cover of darkness, my lords. Took 200 men we could ill spare. Said he bore orders from Queen Cersei. Slint's eyes flicked between them. We dared not impede the Queen's brother. Robert's hand tightened on hammer. "You will dare now, Lord Slint. You will open your gates and quarter my host, or you will feed crows hanging from your own battlements." Slint bowed until helm tapped breastplate. "At once, your grace." The host filed into Harrenhal's vast courtyard, echoing with the clatter of hooves on stone older than memory. Robert seized Lord Went's chambers, deserted since Went's death, and ordered immediate council. Ned strode corridors where petrified beams bent under dragon-scored ceilings, feeling ghosts brush his shoulders. In the high hall they spread maps across a table grooved like dragon's talon. Scouts confirmed Jaime's path. He rode southeast with Marbrand toward Blackwater's headwaters. Robert slammed fist on River Mark. "He races home," the king growled. "We will chase him down the King's Road, pound his retreat until King's Landing rings with his screams." Ned pursed lips. "If we abandon Harrenhal now, Tywin's main army might seize it behind us, cutting supply, then torch it when we leave." Robert snapped, eyes wild. "I will not let Jaime slip into the city." Barristan laid calm hand on map. "Your grace, we could split forces. One host harry Jaime, the other fortify here until Stannis arrives by sea." Robert's nostrils flared, but he nodded grudgingly. "Ned, you hold Harrenhal. Its walls need a Stark's caution. I ride with Barristan and Umber swift and light." He tapped hammer to table. "We leave dawn." Ned bowed, but dread gnawed. Harrenhal was cursed, and curses fed on cracks in men's hearts. If Tywin descended here while Robert charged ahead chasing a ghost, the realm would splinter beyond mending. After council, Ned walked the godswood. Harrenhal's was a twisted, stunted thing, crippled by dragonfire centuries past. Its heart tree bore no face, trunk half hollow. Ned knelt anyway, seeking stillness. The wind whistled through broken towers, sounding like distant sobs. That same night, Jaime reached the red sandstone hills above Blackwater Rush, camped beneath old windmill ruin. Marbrand's scouts reported Robert reached Harrenhal. 2 days behind. Jaime paced, cursing. "The king rides too damn fast." Marbrand suggested circling east to avoid pursuit, but Jaime insisted on direct path. "Cersei needs me," he said simply. Unbeknownst to them, Theon Greyjoy had tracked their spoor from the marshlands, trading his last Durin for fresh horse after fresh horse. At dusk he crouched on a shale ledge watching Lannister fires flicker. He counted banners. 100. Too many for lone strike, yet message mattered more than arrow. He loosed a raven northward bearing location marks, then crept closer to steal a red-cloaked sentry's horn. At midnight, he blew a single long note, the call of Hornwood huntsmen, signaling Elk Drive. Lannister camp stirred in confusion. Horses reared, men stumbled from bedrolls. Theon fled into thorn scrub, arrow quiver slapping his back, laughter rasping between clenched teeth. Chaos behind him bought Robert time. In King's Landing, Cersei paced the queen's solar like lioness in shrinking cage. Ravens from Tywin assured marching host, but no word arrived of Jaime's safe progress. She had bribed half the alchemists' guild to stock wildfire casks along city walls, a last defense if Robert stormed the gates. Joffrey, pale and trembling, refused court sessions, clinging to crossbow he barely knew to string. Myrcella prayed nightly in Sept of Baelor, tears dropping on maiden statue. Tommen hugged Sir Adam's old hound beneath bedcovers. Cersei's heart fractured but hardened in same beat. She summoned Grand Maester Pycelle, extracted vials of essence of nightshade, and hid them in a golden box. "If the stag breaks our gates," she told her handmaiden, "we choose our own fates, not his." The maid wept. Cersei slapped her silent. Tears rust resolve. She hissed, "Dry them." At Harrenhal's East Watchtower, Ned received Theon's raven. Jaime 2 days ride ahead, but slowed by false horns may veer toward Wendwater Bridge. Ned rushed message to Robert, dispatching Sir Helman Tallhart with fresh mounts along Outer Road. Robert, already saddled, grinned when he read, "The Kraken's boy has talent after all." He clapped Tallhart's shoulder. "Ride, and I'll be no more than half a day behind." Ned watched Robert's detachment thunder out, crimson dawn flaring off spearheads. He felt cold settle under breastplate, not from frost but from shadow crouching in fortress stones. He turned to organizing garrison, repairing barbican portcullis, shoring arrow slit shutters, drafting ration counts. He tasked Bolton with night patrols. Umber's second son, Crowfoot, commanded gate guard. That night Ned dreamt again of the blue winter roses, petals drifting like snow. Lyanna's voice echoed. The North remembers, but summer forgets. Wake, or the realm will bleed. He woke to horns. Alarm? Not parley. Rushing to parapet, he saw banners massing under moonlight on Western Ridge. Crimson Lion roaring gold. Tywin's host, 3 times the king's at Harrenhal. Ned tasted copper fear. How? He muttered. Scouts had reported Tywin a week behind. Roose Bolton appeared silently. They marched night and day. The leech-pale lord observed, and perhaps our eyes were misled. Ned shot him a sharp glance but shouted orders. Gates slammed, torches lit. Inside walls not yet fully manned, men scrambled. Tywin's trumpet sounded challenge. Siege engines rumbled into view. Spidery trebuchets dragged by oxen. Ned swallowed. Harrenhal's curtain wall could withstand years, yet internal supply was thin, and Robert pursued Jaime days south. Ned descended to yard, voice steady as he rallied men. We hold, he declared. No single stone of this castle falls, while honor stands atop it. Archers cheered. Spearmen thumped shields. Yet in shadows, Bolton's eyes glittered like frost. A choice balanced on edge of flayed knife. By noon, Tywin's catapults hurled the first stones, groaning boulders that shattered against ancient flame-charred walls. Harrenhal shook. Dust rained on kitchens where cooks huddled. Ned ordered counterfire from 2 repaired mangonels. Stones arced but fell short. Ziga lines crept closer behind pavises. Through spyglass, Ned saw ranks of heavy infantry wearing bright new mail stamped with lion heads. 12,000 at least, camp followers ringing behind like ants around spilled honey. Inside the hall, Tyrion conferred with Catelyn and Vaynpool. If your husband falls here, Tyrion warned, the North loses Lord and King both. You must send Bran, Robb, and Rickon beyond the neck. Catelyn's voice cracked. I will not abandon Ned. Tyrion shrugged. Then gather ravens begging Blackfish Tully to ride with moonless speed. Lysis knights too, though they'll hide behind Moon Door if asked. Catelyn nodded stiffly, heart torn but mind sharpened. She drafted pleas to River Run and the Eyrie, pressing seals while Tyrion drafted suggestions on bribing mercenary captains inside Tywin's host. Every lion's cub has price, he quipped, particularly those not of lordly line. Outside, dusk bled across siege hoops. Tywin's herald rode forth beneath white banner, voice amplified by iron funnel. Eddard Stark, surrender castle and stand aside while lawful regent secures the realm. Yours is a lost cause, built on bastard lies. Ned listened atop gatewalk, then answered via horn trumpet. The realm stands for truth, not gold. He lifted ice, its Valyrian ripples catching fading light. Come break upon it if you dare. Herald retreated. War drums began. Tywin meant to assault at dawn. Behind Ned, Roose spoke softly. A frontal assault on these walls will cost him thousands. Perhaps he wagers we lack bread more than he lacks sons. Bread dwindles, Ned admitted. But resolve stands. He fixed Bolton with keen gaze. I need every man at full loyalty. Bolton bowed, yet something unreadable lingered. Dreadfort's oath is iron. Night cloaked the plain. Fires ringed Harrenhal like red necklace. Ned strode battlements, speaking courage to sentries. Below in the Godswood pit, he found the heart stub smoldering from stray firepot. He knelt, pressed palm to charred bark. Help me keep them safe, he whispered to forgotten gods. Wind answered with hollow moan, but he felt some ember stir inside. At midnight, archers reported movement. Small groups scuttling between siege lines. Ned ordered flares. Light burst, revealing teams planting kite-shaped devices. Sappers prepping for wall undermines. Stones rained from ramparts, bolts whistled, screams punctured dark. The Lannisters pulled back, but not before setting tar pots ablaze beneath West Tower's foundation. Flames licked up, heating ancient stone, releasing billows of toxic black smoke that drifted into courtyard. Men coughed, eyes stinging. Ned dispatched water carts, but dragon-scorched stone thirsted for fuel. Cracks glowing red before dawn. Tywin launched assault at first gray light. Ladders hammered wood. Shields lifted overhead. Horns boomed. On ramparts, Manderly crossbowmen loosed quarrels, dropping crimson plumes into moat. Umbers roared war songs, heaving rocks onto climbing foes. Ned strode along, parrying a spear that jabbed between crenellations. He thrust ice downward, cleaving ladder rung and fingers alike. Men screamed. Ladders toppled. Yet more rose behind. West Tower began to groan, heat expanded stones grinding. Ned shouted for evacuation just before a deafening crack split the air. The tower's upper third peeled away, crashing outward in avalanche of flaming rubble onto Lannister assault columns. Dust billowed. Cries of agony echoed. The collapse smashed the sappers but opened a yawning breach where wall met tower stump. Jagged gap wide enough for 50 men abreast. Tywin's horns changed pitch. Charge signal. Wave after wave surged at the breach. Ned flung himself into gap with Bolton's flayed men on right, Tall Hearts on left, forming V of shields. Clash resounded. Iron on ice, blood spraying stones. Ned's arm numbed with each stroke. Splinters of broken spear jutted from thigh, but he fought on, shouting Robb's name, Bran's, Sansa's, until voice turned raw. Hours blurred. The sun climbed behind smoke haze. Shadows twisted over corpses. Still, they held. Then a roar cut above din, a monstrous bellow from Eastgate. Ned whipped around. The portcullis there lifted. Stark guards dead, mechanism sized. A flood of mailed warriors poured in bearing unfamiliar sigil. A pale pink field with blood-red flayed man. Roose Bolton rode at their head, cloak billowing. He raised voice strong and cold. By order of Warden of the North, Harrenhal is forfeit. Lay down arms. Stark spearmen gaped. Ned's heart froze. Roose, what madness. Bolton's mount stepped closer. Madness is dying for a false king, he said, eyes lifeless. I yield Harrenhal to Lord Tywin in exchange for Dreadfort's ascendance. He turned to Lannister line. The breach is yours. Bolton men wheeled, cutting into Tall Heart flank. Panic rippled. Ned shouted for Umbers to pivot, but confusion reigned. Lannister troops poured through breach simultaneously. Overwhelming defenders now assailed from rear. The yard became slaughterhouse. Ned fought toward Bolton, but swirling melee dragged him away. A mace head smashed his helm. World flashed white. He staggered, vision blurring. He felt bodies slam him. Recognized none. Heat. Screams. Smoke. At last 2 Lannister men tackled him from side, wrestling ice from grip. He swung mailed fist, cracked cheekbone. But third plowed spear butt into his gut. Breath left. They pinned arms, bound wrists with chain. Across ruin, Bolton's voice shouted new orders. Ned sank to knees, tasting blood. Around him, Harrenhal stones drank crimson, fulfilling curse of Harren, the Black, anew. As gaolers dragged him toward shattered hall, he glimpsed Stark banner torn from rampart and trampled into mud. Direwolf's head soaked red as the lion's. Miles south, Robert's detachment galloped through Kingswood glades when first Raven found them. Message penned by unknown hand. Harrenhal breached, Bolton treacherous, Eddard captive. Robert's roar startled birds from branches. He wheeled horse, shouting for full march back north, but Barristan seized reins. Too late, the old knight warned. We ride into jaws. Robert sagged, fury turning hollow. Then we carve out. But horns sounded ahead, royal scouts returning with news. Jaime's host within half day, heading same road. Robert stared at sky, torn between enemy before and behind. At last he drew hammer and pointed north. "We free Ned," he said. "Or die." Barristan nodded. The host turned, thunder rolling south to north again, like storm chasing its own tail. In Winterfell's ravenry, Maester Luwin pulled scroll after scroll, reading with trembling hands. Tywin at Harrenhal, Ned taken, Bolton traitor. Catelyn felt ground tilt. She steadied on stone parapet, voice icy. "Send word to White Harbor. Call banners. Robb will march south with every sword the North can muster." She turned to Rickon, clutching her skirts, tears in boy's eyes. She knelt. "Be brave for Bran." He nodded, lip quivering. In Godswood, Arya vowed silently she would ride south too. Somehow, needle ready to free father. Sansa knelt at Weirwood, praying petals fall into shape of direwolf rising. And Tyrion, reading news in East Tower, muttered, "My sister plays Savas with wildfire, and every piece on board is ash." He unstoppered wine, drank deep, sealed a new letter to Tywin. "Father, your bleeding realm needs more than pride." Within Harrenhal's dark bowels, Ned Stark awoke, shackled to damp stone, torch guttering. Across cell, Jaime Lannister lounged on bench, wrists likewise manacled. Captured day before when Robert's scouts finally cornered Marbrand's rearguard, trading liberty for speed, in attempt to aid Ned but too late. Jaime smirked. "So the old wolf and the golden lion share a cage now. Perhaps we'll rewrite ballads together." Ned's lips split as he laughed, humorless. "Perhaps we'll die together." Jaime shrugged. "Better companions than spiders and shadows." Outside, Tywin's voice echoed, faint, discussing terms of ransom. Robert's head for Ned's, perhaps. Ned closed eyes, feeling walls breathe curses. Yet somewhere dawn would break over snow-capped wall, and deer wolves would howl, and suns would rally banners still. He gripped cold chain, whispering to unseen gods, "Hold till the North remembers." Far away, winter winds carried that promise over frost-hushed forests, across iron-bound hills, into hearts of men sharpening swords by candlelight. Snowflakes blurred banner colors, but resolve gleamed silver, unyielding. The Game of Thrones raged hotter than dragonflame, but ice, slow, patient, inexorable, endures. K. Snow shrouded the sky above Harrenhal in a near-silent drift that slowed sound and dulled the clangor rising from the yards. Flakes drifted through roofless halls and melted against the half-molten stone of the broken West Tower, hissing faintly where red embers still glimmered. Beneath that pale hush, the fortress was a hive of hammering, sawing, shouted orders and groans, for Tywin Lannister did nothing by halves. His engineers were already framing stout palisades to seal the breach Bolton had torn open, while carpenters roofed the smithy and blacksmiths set up new forges to beat iron into arrowheads and hinges for siege ladders. Grain wagons rolled in under lion banners from the fertile riverlands Tywin had stripped bare in passing, and gaunt chains of captives stumbled behind. Small folk pressed into labor, teamsters to drive the oxen, tanners and coopers, girls for the camp followers' huts. A castle once hollow and haunted, now thrummed with brutal life. High on the widow's tower, where Harren's third son had once kept his concubines, Tywin held court at a makeshift table of rough boards laid across two crates of coin. Roose Bolton stood to one side, pale as a drowned man in his flayed man cloak, and opposite him the golden twins, Sir Adam Marbrand and Sir Kevin, watched with wary eyes. Tywin's quill scratched across parchment. Now and again, he dipped it in a slab of black ink and blew, impatient to dry the lines. "We send 3 ravens," he said. "One to King's Landing, one to Old Town for the High Septon, one to River Run. Since Hoster Tully claims friendship with Lord Stark, each carries the same message. Eddard Stark and Sir Jaime Lannister are held together for the good of the realm. The Kingslayer will answer for no crime save those proven by the High Septon. Ned Stark will face no harm unless traitors move further against the crown. See that the tone is measured." Kevin nodded and tugged the scrolls nearer. "And the wording for Robb Stark?" Tywin looked out through the broken lancet window. Beyond the lakeshore, columns of smoke rose where burn pits consumed the fallen. Robb Stark is 17. He will ride with rage. We do not waste ink on pups howling in kennels. Roose's colorless eyes flicked towards the snow-sleek courtyard. The boy rides with every bannerman the Starks can muster. He murmured. The North is not a kennel, my lord. It is a wilderness that remembers. My ravens report 15,000 spears assembling at Moat Cailin. Lord Wyman manderly advances by river with 500 heavy horse and 20 flatboats crammed shoulder to shoulder with archers. A wooden armada cannot climb castle walls, Tywin said. Nor can green northern lads match my veterans. He signed the final scroll with a flourish. Yet they will bleed us if they crash against these stones. That I will not allow. Marbrand, order the scouts to ride day and night until they glimpse the first wolf banner. While they see nothing, they burn every village in their path. Wolves grow reckless when their dens are ashes. Adam Marbrand bowed. Yes, you command. Bolton's mouth curled. Fear sharpens claws, my lord. It does not dull them. It dulls the will, Tywin corrected softly. And it slows the march. Each hearth lost forces them to forage. A starving host is a negotiating table with legs sawn short. Bandir. He sealed the scrolls and handed them off. When the servants were gone, he turned back to Roose. You pledged me your jailers. Where are they now? Below? Bolton said. In the black cells. 5 of mine keep watch. The key is on my person, Tontoa. He tapped a small silver clasp at his belt. I hold it until my son arrives with 800 spears of the weeping water. Hostages are best guarded by men whose fortunes twist upon them. Tywin nodded approval. Your son's pace? Hard marching. 9 days. And send riders to hasten him. Tywin closed the inkwell. And see that the court is prepared for Lord Renly. My spies whisper he quits Storm's End with 10,000 of the marches and all the banners of the Reach at his back. Marbrand's brows climbed. Renly? To what end? To crown himself if he must, Tywin said. Robert is wounded, worse than he lets Ned Stark see. Do not think I missed the tremor in his sword arm outside the trident 3 years ago at Beller's tourney. He drives himself upon poppy and wine. A weak king invites pretenders. He turned. Go, and send the maester. I would speak of raven roots. Nenawandawar. They went. Alone, Tywin stood at the broken window a long time, snowflakes alighting in his silver gold hair. Below, fires flickered around the smithy, sparks riding the updraft like swarming fireflies. The heat had begun to thaw the old dragon scars upon the stone. Water trickled down the blocks in thin streams, freezing again before they reached the base. Nothing lasts, he reflected. Not flame, not ice, not kings. Only names carved into the bones of the realm. He would see that Lannister remained one of those bones long after wolves and stags crumbled into dust. And below the Widow's Tower, deep in the belly of Harrenhal, Ned Stark flexed his wrists, testing the length of chain anchored to the wall ring. The iron links were stout and oiled to resist rust. Each time he strained them, he felt the bite of forged edges in his skin. Across the cell, Jaime lounged beneath a flickering torch, the orange glare casting dancing shadows over the Kingslayer's face. Despite manacles, Jaime looked a warrior at ease in camp. One boot bent beneath the opposite knee, eyes half-lidded, his smile lazy. If you pull another link free, you'll only shorten your chain, Jaime said. Believe me, I tried. Ned sank back on the straw pallet. His shoulder throbbed from the blow that had felled him at the breach. Dried blood still blackened the torn mail shirt they had allowed him to keep his tunic. Better bruised than beheaded, he said. Give Tywin time, Jaime replied, head tipping against the wall. My father seldom leaves a crime unpunished. He paused, smirk wry. Yours just confessed to flaying half the rowers of the North alive. Did you truly not know what snake slept beneath your chair at Winterfell? Bolton's loyalty was grudging, Ned said. But he obeyed hearth and heart for nigh 20 years. Hearts change, Jaime said. Hearths go cold. A man can choose not to betray. So can a woman choose not to take her brother a bed, Jaime retorted. Yet Cersei and I never felt inclined. Ned's mouth hardened. Speak no more to me of your sister. Jaime chuckled. You blind yourself because the truth is ugly. So you wrap it in honor and call it a shield. Break that shield stark. Honor will not feed your family once the lions rule. Ned looked past Jaime into shadows pooling in corners. Mice skittered there, nibbling at straw.wool. Honor has bought us friends, he murmured. Friends ride now to crack your father's golden armor. Friends, Jaime echoed. Roose Bolton was your friend last week. He leaned forward. Tywin will carve the north like a midwife's apprentice. He'll bleed it first to see where the fat runs, then slice deep. Better to bend the knee. Them too? The knee will not bend, Ned said. Not while I draw breath. A key rasped. Both turned as Bolton's gaoler entered, a lantern in one hand, a wooden tray in the other. Bread, cheese, a heel of ham, small beaker. He set it down between them without a word. Ned watched his movements, noting hardness behind the eyes. The man looked Northman enough, but his cloak bore Bolton's sigil dyed a faded umber. Ned spoke softly. You served Winterfell once? The jailer hesitated, glancing at door. Long time ago, my lord. To hold a man for gold, Ned said, is no sin worth your soul. But to break faith with home. The man swallowed. Home don't fill bellies. Dreadfort pays. He turned the key, retreating. Jaime gave Ned an amused look. You think honeyed words free you? The gate swings to gold coins, Stark. Ned picked at the cheese. A coin may buy a key. A word may set fire to the lock. Die. And the cheese, Jaime said, will keep us alive until ransom nails our heads over gates. Yet when the jailer returned at Candlemark to collect the tray, Ned slid a folded scrap beneath the loaf. A message scratched on cheese rind with nail sliver. Mouse droppings stained the edge. He watched the man's eyes flick down, dart away. No word was spoken, perhaps none needed. Ned turned back to Jaime and closed his eyes, hearing a whisper of straw as the jailer departed. And north of Harrenhal, on the road that hugged the Green Fork's eastern bank, Robb Stark rode at the van of a tide of steel and leather. The banners of House Stark flapped behind him. Gray on white, intermixed with the merman of Manderley, the roaring bear of Mormont, the moose of Hornwood. At his right hand thundered Great John Umber, bellowing orders. At his left Lady Mage herself, stout and unbending, spear clutched as if it were a household broom. The host strung out for miles down the muddy track, hooves and boots beating a steady dirge. Snow hissed against leather cloaks. Robb pulled his wolf fur tighter and glanced aside at gray wind padding along the verge. The direwolf's fur bristled whenever horns moaned distantly across the river, for on the far bank rode 3,000 Westermen under Sir Forley Prester, shadowing the column like predatory cats. At dusk Galbart Glover galloped back from scouting. A dozen river crossings destroyed, he reported grimly. The Westermen fired the boats. Broken planks float miles downstream. Robb nodded. They fear we'll cross to strike their flank. Good. Let them waste strength denying us. And they also drive small folk before them, Glover added. Refugees clogged the King's Road. Food grows scarce. We left White Harbor barges at Maidenpool, Robb said. If Prester heaps them with torches too, we fight hungry. He turned in saddle toward his bannerman. Order every company to butcher a cow tonight. Salt half, eat half. Great John grinned through his beard. The lads will like that. Tell them they earn it by doubling the march, Robb said. Harrenhal is 3 days if we keep the pace. Maid Mormont clucked her tongue. Young lord, our mounts won't last should we run them to bone. Robb's eyes shone cold. My father lasts in a cell. Our horses may bear a heavier burden. He spurred forward. By moonrise the host camped on a barren stretch where a calcite white tree stumps jutted from frozen mud. Men hacked them for fires, the smell of green sap hissing. Robb walked the rows, pausing by each ring of flames. He spoke plain words, of fealty, of home, of fathers. and the men's eyes followed him like dogs trailing a favored son. At the far edge he found Theon Greyjoy, cloak torn, new scabs across cheek. "Scouts said you blew a horn in Lannister camp," Robb said. Theon laughed softly. "I wanted Jaime's men chasing ghosts. I brought a ghost. They chased you. Half a furlong before I dove off a bluff into the rush. I can still taste mud between my teeth." He gripped Robb's arm. "We can save your father if we ride before Tywin digs deeper." Robb nodded, gaze distant. "Tomorrow we reach the Crossroads Inn. If Sisters of House Frey refuse us bridging, we ford the Green Fork like wolves, cold and swift." Theon smirked. "And drown half the host. Better dead in river than rotting in Bolton's chains." Theon's grin faded. Better that." He glanced across camp, where steel glimmered. "If we break Ned free, Stannis may still claim crown. Where does that leave you?" Robb shrugged. "Alive. With family." He left Theon staring into flames that cracked and spat as snow hissed against sizzling bark. Undo. At King's Landing, the first black gull of winter wheeled over the Red Keep as Cersei paced along Maegor's Holdfast, handmaiden Kella scurrying behind with a lantern. Wind off Blackwater's gray water carried distant clamor of training yards where gold cloaks drilled by torchlight. Cersei's cloak of emerald satin whipped, revealing the slim dagger sheathed its spine. Pycelle awaited her beside a brazier outside the Tower of the Hand. The old man's beard blew wide. Tears watered his eyes from smoke. "Your Grace," he wheezed. Word came. "Renly marches on Bitterbridge with Lord Macy's daisies." "I heard," Cersei said, voice low. "Summon Sir Boros to the small council at dawn. And see that Lord Baelish does not skip this one on some whoring errand." "None." "Lord Baelish has gone to the river gate, Your Grace, to greet." She rounded on him. "I said dawn." Pycelle bowed, spine cracking audibly. Cersei pushed into the holdfast, iron-bound doors slamming. Within, her twins' rooms lay across the corridor, guarded by 4 red cloaks and a Kingsguard she trusted less than poison. She entered Joffrey's chamber quietly. The boy king slept curled, crossbow clutched, face slack, hair tousled, his brow furrowed even in dreams. She brushed a curl away, knelt, and whispered, "Remember, everyone smiles and pulls you by threads. Cut the threads." He stirred. She withdrew. Back in corridor she faced the Kingsguard. "Sir Harris, Swift. If my brother Jaime arrives at these gates, you open them wide." Swift's jowls quivered. "At once, Your Grace." She swept away, dagger cold against her back. Later, in her private chamber, she unlatched the nightshade box. Vials clinked. She traced one slender glass neck, imagining the green burst of wildfire, the sea of flame swallowing the city from Flea Bottom to Visenya's Hill. "Better ashes than a stag upon my throne," she thought. Yet she set the vial back. Not yet. On her desk lay Littlefinger's proposal. Buy off city watch captains with passage rights to the Gold Cloaks brothels. Promise each sergeant a seat at feasts. Move Tyrell wheat into the city. Blame Renly for blockade. She smiled. The fox sees every hole. She penned assent and sanded it quick, then turned to a fresh page. "To Lord Tywin," she wrote, "the capital remains secure. My hostages hail. Jaime's arrival would hearten the watch. Send him forward at speed." She paused, cold golden quill hovering, then added, "The Baratheon boy grows restless with his sword practice. He will need a strong hand soon." She sealed with Lannister lion. Outside, bells tolled 7th hour. She blew out the candle and listened to the darkness, counting heartbeats until distant waves hushed them. Oh. Beyond the Crossroads Inn, Robb's outriders approached the stone spires of the twins beneath a sun that rose weak amid steel-gray vapors. Walder Frey's fortress bridges loomed over the churning Green Fork, a grim pair of towers linked by covered arch and drawbridge. The northern bank teemed with Frey spears, pikes gleaming like a thorn hedge. Banners of pale blue quartered with running horse snapped above. Robb rode to Parley Gate with gray wind padding beside. An old knight in tarnished breastplate emerged. Sir Stevron Frey, Walder's heir, Lines carved his cheeks like the rings in a felled oak. He bowed stiffly. "Lord Robb, my father sends word that passage may be granted, at a price." Robb reined in. "Name it." Stevron produced a scroll. "A wedding. One of Lord Walder's granddaughters to accompany you north as hostage," he read. "In return the phrase, throw their full strength behind House Stark, keep your supply lines, and pledge aid against Lannisters until peace final declared." Greyjohn spat. "The goat wants to marry into kingship." Robb kept his tone even. "And if I refuse?" Stevron's shrug creaked like old leather. "The bridges remain closed. The river is swollen from meltwater, 60 leagues long. You might ford further south if the lions leave you horses." "Ben?" Mage Mormont leaned close. "The old crossfox demands a bride. It is cheaper than losing half our host to drowning." Robb looked to the river. Green water roiled, slabs of ice spinning in eddies. He thought of his father's wrists still red from manacles, of Sansa and Arya under Lannister shadow, of Bran's broken limbs. "I accept," he said. Cheers rose from the ranks behind. Stevron bowed again. "Choose any daughter in father's hall. There are many." He smiled thinly and retreated. When they crossed the bridge, drums thundered from the towers. Chains rattled as gates lifted. Walder's gatehouse stank of damp straw and wet fur. Girls in threadbare blue gowns stood lined along hall like dolls in poorly kept shop. Robb walked past them once, twice, noting freckles, posture, eyes. At last he stopped before one named Jane, dark-haired, quick-smiled. She curtsied, hand trembling. He spoke the betrothal words. Walder's withered mouth pursed, but he nodded, and servants loosed the chains on ale casks. Night fell in feasting. Robb drank little. Dawn he woke and led his host south, now swelled by 4,000 Frey pikes. The crossing cost him promise of marriage, yet earned a tide of steel. Grey wind trotted ahead, ears flat. Muzzle lifting to dawn, wind that carried faint thunder of distant drums. Tywin's siege horns. And then, inside Harrenhal, Ned heard those horns, though he lay 2 floors beneath earth. Deep vibrations rolled through stone, like whales' song in deep water. Jaime lifted his head. "That is no practice call," he murmured. Footsteps clattered above. Shouted orders, clank of closing gates. The jailer burst in, pale and sweating. "We move," he hissed, unlocking Ned's chain. "Come." Jaime stood, brow arching. "And me?" "Orders for the Lord of Casterly Rock," the jailer said. "Bolton sends you to the Widow's Tower dais. Stark goes below." He hauled Ned by elbow. Jaime called after, "Tell my father I want a decent bed." Stairs spiraled downward into black. Torch smoke stung Ned's cut lip. At landing they crossed corridor where rats scuttled. The jailer pressed him on until iron door loomed. Within waited Roose Bolton, hands clasped behind him. Pale eyes glittering. "Lord Stark," he said softly. "You stand at cusp between irons." Ned straightened, chains jingling. "I stood for you when Mance Raider raided the Shivering Shore. I carried your plea to Robert for grain 3 winters back." "I remember," Bolton said. "Yet winter now requires different measures." He gestured at a table where rolled parchment lay, blue wax at one end, dagger at other. "Write to your bannermen. Tell them the lion roars under our protection. Tell them to turn for home." Ned stared. "I write nothing." "Write," Bolton repeated, "or I hang your son Robb on Harren's old gallows." Ned's stomach lurched. "You do not have him." "A raven this morning." Prester's riders saw the wolf banner cross the twins. "If Tywin storms his camp tomorrow, you will pray you penned sweeter words." Ned said nothing. Bolton's voice was silk sliding over steel. "Stafford Lannister marches upriver. I released word you might join his council if proven tempered. You may yet live, Stark. Think on the north. Crippled boy, helpless wife, empty coffers." Ned's head throbbed. He pictured Bran reaching feebly for wooden wolves, Catelyn's determined face under torchlight. Roose moved nearer, breath cool. "I give you an hour." He left, Ned sank on stool, staring at parchment. Torch sputtered. Reason hissed. He took quill, dipped in ink, but his hand hovered. Outside, horns groaned anew. 3 long notes, mournful. Not Tywin's. Something else. The jailer rushed in, face white. Fires in the west yard, he gasped. Someone opened the portcullis. He shoved Ned aside and ran. Ned slid dagger from table, sawing at wrist chain. Links creaked but held. He wedged blade into mortar seam and twisted. Iron groaned. A rivet popped free. He worked feverishly until a link bent wide enough to slip. One hand free. Torch clatter echoed further down. He snapped dagger blade, jammed shard into final link. Twisted. The chain sheared. Blood spurted from palm, but he was loose. He crept into corridor. Smoke drifted from stair where flickering amber told of fire above. Shouts reverberated. Archers to the gatewalk. Traitors on the wall. Open the bloody well. Ned stepped through rising haze. The courtyard beyond the postern seethed. A gate had indeed crawled half open, and a phalanx of mailed figures in gray cloaks poured in. Deerwolves stitched white across chests. Overhead flamed a banner of the twin towers beside Wolf Banner. Freymen opening gates to the Starks. Gray wind's howl split the air like battle trumpet. Robb Stark rode through the chaos on a coal stallion. Helm taped with bronze wolf's head. At his shoulder, Theon slung gray-fletched arrows, loosing at Lannister halberdiers running for the keep. Behind, Maege Mormont led a wedge of spears, screaming, "Mormont, Mormont!" as they drove into red-cloaked crossbowmen. Ned stumbled across cobbles. Stunned. Robb's glance swept the yard, found him. "Father!" he roared. He wheeled, charged through swirl, cutting a path as gray wind tore aside a Bolton guard. Robb vaulted down in a crash of armor. They grasped one another, Ned nearly buckling with relief. "How?" "Walder Frey owed a debt," Robb shouted over din. "And Jaime's men thinned Tywin's siege lines last night when they tried to slip away. We struck at dawn while they chased phantoms." "Nah." Bolton's flayed men scrambled, some tossing sigils to ground, others joining Lannister panic. Roose himself appeared on battlements, eyes wide as the assault pierced his yard. He disappeared within. Robb thrust a short sword into Ned's hands. "Can you fight?" Ned tested grip. Pain lanced wrist. "I can try." They pressed toward Inner Keep where Marbrand's veterans formed last redoubt. The clash became a whirl of red and gray. Steel shrieking. Robb's wolf helm shattered a Lannister archer's jaw. Ned parried a mace strike, riposted into mail, felt ribs crack beneath keen edge. Through the smoke and hail of quarrels, he glimpsed Roose Bolton sprinting toward a postern arch, 2 guards at heel. Ned pointed and shouted. Great Jin Umber roared, hurling a throwing axe. It whirled end over end. Smote Bolton's left guard and spine. The flayed lord hustled on. At the stables, Jaime Lannister emerged, wrists still manacled, but blade in hand, carving a red path. He saw Ned. Flashed, feral grin. Unchained at last, old wolf. Ned faced him. Sword raised. Jaime tossed the broken cuffs aside. One last dance. Robb stepped up, but Ned held him back. "Go," he ordered hoarsely. "Secure the gatehouse." Robb obeyed reluctantly. Sprinting away with gray wind, Jaime saluted. They circled on blood-slick stones, the air thick with smoke and the stench of burning pitch. Jaime lunged first, quick as viper, blade seeking Ned's wounded shoulder. Ned parried, felt jolt down arm, riposta low. Jaime spun, kicked crock-broken bucket into Ned's shin, darted left. They traded cuts too fast for breath. Sparks showering. "Still stiff," Jaime taunted. "Southron's son would have kept your joints oiled." "North keeps hearts true," Ned answered, slashing. Steel met steel. Jaime laughed. Ash drifted. A bolt thudded plank near them. Neither dared glance. Footing treacherous, Ned slipped. Jaime closed. but shackled wrists slowed perfect rhythm. Ned inside slipped. Shoulder to Jaime's chest, hilt to temple. Jaime reeled, blood spraying. Ned thrust but Kingslayer turned, blade biting gauntlet. Hilt locked. They grappled. Jaime headbutted. Ned's vision burst in stars. They sprawled down steps, blades skittering free. On ground, they wrestled. Jaime's hand sought throat. Ned hammered elbow into broken rib. Jaime gasped. Ned seized manacle chain still dangling, looped it round Jaime's sword arm, hauled tight. With free hand he snatched dagger from dead man's sheath, pressed to Jaime's carotid. Both froze, breaths ragged. Noise of battle thundered like distant surf. Jaime laughed, blood in teeth. Well played, Stark. Kill me and become Oathbreaker again. Break my honor or lose my children. Ned rasped. Easy choice. Then strike. But the realm will drown in lion vengeance. Ned's grip trembled. He thought of Robert, Catelyn, Bran. He released tension slightly. Live to face trial. He slammed Jaime's head to stone. The Kingslayer sagged unconscious. Around them Lannister resistance crumbled. Manderley horn rang triumphant. Cries of Winterfell rose. Tywin's engineers fled, dragging wounded. On battlement, Frey pikes lowered Bolton banners, hoisting direwolf. The fight ebbed like receding tide. Greyjohn strode up, red splashed. My lord, the Lion's army scatters south. Our outriders chase. He yanked Jaime upright, binding new chains. What of the flayed traitor? Bolton flees for the trident. A scout panted. A boat on the lake. Ned wiped blade. We'll hunt him later. He sagged against wall. Robb ran back, eyes wet. It's done, Robb whispered. You're free. Ned clasped his son. No, he said softly, gaze turning south beyond walls, where burning camps still smoke. It begins. Overhead snowflakes mixed with ash, pale ghosts, swirling upon hot winds of war. Enderande. 2 days later, Robert Baratheon's detachment rode up to gates where direwolf banners now flapped above repaired palisade. He dismounted wearily. Wounds and fever lined his face. Ned met him beneath arch. They embraced wordlessly. Behind Robert, Barristan watched, relief softening age-cleft lines. In council chamber that night, the great lords sat round a scarred oak table. Robert at head, Ned at right, Robb at left. Greatjon, Mormont, Manderley, Glover, the Freys, even Tyrion, eyes sharp but silent. Jaime Lannister knelt in chains beside Ser Barristan. Robert's voice was hoarse. The realm is torn. My wife hides behind the Red Keep. Renly marches, Stannis broods, Tywin burns villages. He turned to Ned. We need peace bought with steel or parchment. Which do we swing first? Ned spoke. Send ravens to Stannis. Pledge the North swords if he forsakes claim until war is won. Offer Renly a seat on small council and Stormlands exempt from war taxes. Name Tywin Warden of West if he bends knee and yields Cersei to trial. Greatjon banged fist. Give lions gifts after treachery? Tywin's hosts number twice ours, Ned said. Better his pride sated than his swords eager. Tyrion lifted hand. My father values coin above pride. Restore Casterly Mine's tariff rights. He will listen. Robert eyed Jaime. And the Kingslayer? Ned met Jaime's gaze. Trial in King's Landing, my High Septon. Let justice be seen. Jaime smirked. I demand trial by combat. Robert's brow nodded. You'll have it when realm sees dawn again. Barristan will stand for crown. May gods judge. Jaime's smile faded. Then God's way heavy. Council ended at moonrise, but Ned remained with Robert, looking out over lake where moon rippled silver. Robert coughed, a wet rasp. Old wounds fester, he admitted. When peace comes, throne may need younger legs. Ned clasped his forearm. Peace first. In dark, that clung to cracked stones, snow began anew. Fires burned still in distant camps, but their glow felt warmer than the dragon fires once branded on Harrenhal's walls. Men wrapped themselves in furs and hopes. And somewhere in frozen sky, A single star glimmered, sharp, unwavering. Ended. 3 weeks later, outside the gates of King's Landing, 2 banners faced across the field of ashes. The crowned stag on black, and the golden lion on crimson. Between them stood a makeshift platform of oak planks. Upon it, beneath gray sky, Jaime Lannister walked forward in battered mail, sword in hand, shackles fresh removed. Across from him, Ser Barristan Selmy lifted visor and drew longblade whose edge winked keen. The crowds murmured. Small folk, high-born, sellswords, silent sisters, all gathered to witness the trial by the gods. Ned watched from Robert's side, flanked by Robb and Jean Frey, by Sansa clutching Septa's hand, by Tyrion whose eyes never left brother. On rampart above, Cersei stood rigid, mask of calm. The High Septon raised arms. Let the warrior guide true. Trumpets blared. Jaime saluted, smirked, and lunged. Steel rang loud, echoing over black water. 2 of the realm's greatest blades danced beneath lowering clouds, each thrust and parry a story etched in shock. Barristan's precision met Jaime's furious grace. Sparks flew in silver showers. The duel raged long minutes, Jaime's speed stamina against Barristan's discipline. At last the Kingslayer's boot slid on muddy plank. Barristan's riposte shaved golden hair. Jaime recovered, slashed low, but the old knight turned cut aside and smashed pommel to temple. Jaime staggered. Barristan stepped in, blade tip at throat. The High Septon's voice trembled. Yield, Sir Jaime, or forfeit life. Blood trickled. Jaime lifted sword, eyes flashing. He opened mouth to quip, but met Ned's gaze across field, then looked upward to Cersei's pale face. His shoulders lowered. Sword clattered. I yield. Silence. Then roars of shock, relief, outrage. Barristan lowered blade, nodding grim respect. Robert stepped forward. The gods have spoken. He looked to city walls. Cersei of House Lannister, come forth. She did not move. Robert motioned soldiers. Gates creaked, red cloaks advancing to escort her down. The queen descended, head high as wind whipped her hair. Before crowd she faced her husband. Sun broke through cloud, lighting them. Robert lifted hammer. You stand accused of treason, adultery, incest, kinslaying in intent. How do you answer? Cersei's green eyes burned. I answer thus. Kings fall. Queens rise. She spat at his feet. Robert's jaw flexed. Trial will follow. He gestured. Gold cloaks bound her hands. Of. Crowd muttered. Shock rippling. Ned exhaled. Storm's first squall passed. Yet horizon held fresh clouds. Renly's banners at Bitterbridge. Stannis sails off Dragonstone. Tywin regrouping in Westerlands. A realm patched in uneasy truce, threads of loyalty fraying in cold wind. As guards led Cersei past, she paused before Sansa died. Child. She whispered, lips curling, remember. Love is poison. Only power remains. Bemdapo. Sansa flinched. Catelyn drew her close. Cersei smiled faintly and walked on. That night, inside Maegor's holdfast, Ned found Arya practicing needlework in empty gallery, phantom foes swirling in her dance. He watched quiet. At last she halted, breathing hard. Father, she said. Is it over? He knelt, embracing her. No, he murmured. It is never over, but we breathe free tonight. Outside bells tolled, deep and slow, for a queen imprisoned and a kingdom still bleeding. But wind carried the scent of rain rather than smoke, and lanterns flickered warm along streets where small folk whispered of new dawns. In the Red Keep's Godswood, the ancient weirwood shivered pale leaves in evening breeze, and Ned Stark laid a scarred palm upon its smooth face, feeling lifeblood drum steady beneath. Winter's night stretched long, yet somewhere in that quiet, he heard Lyanna's promise sigh anew. The seed of honor, still unbroken. Inya, Ka. A hush lingered over King's Landing in the days following Cersei's arrest, the uneasy quiet of a city that sensed its own foundations shifting. Merchants spoke in whispers as they weighed coins on battered scales. Gold cloaks marched in double patrols along the street of Flower. The bells of the great sept told dawn, noon and dusk with funereal solemnity. Even the gutter snipes that usually crowded flea-bottom corners fell silent at nightfall, as if afraid the darkness might swallow them whole. Robert Baratheon presided over the Red Keep, like a man stitched together by will alone. Maesters dosed him with milk of the poppy for the constant ache in his ribs, but he refused to dull himself, insisting on daily councils in the Tower of the Hand. Ned Stark now occupied the Hand's seat again, yet every meeting left him wondering whether the throne they served was more ragged than its king. Stannis arrived first. Sailing up the Blackwater, on a squat galley painted sunset red, the fiery heart of the Lord of Light emblazoned on its mainsail. He disembarked in full plate, mailed feet ringing on the quay, his grim jaw set like quarried rock. During the small council session that followed, he offered Robert a single curt nod, greeted Ned with the barest inclination of the head, and sat. His eyes, flint hard, swept the table as if measuring each man's worth by how much it might weigh against treason. Renly entered the chamber 2 days later with banners streaming and half the Tyrell court riding at his back. Mace Tyrell in rose and green, 2 sons in gold-wrought plate, a host of plucked and painted reach lords trailing perfumes and laughter. Renly flashed his easy smile at Ned, winked at Sansa who watched from the gallery, and finished with an elaborate bow to his eldest brother that ended in dramatic flourish. Robert's gaze flicked between them like a barbed lash. 2 brothers come to help a third, he said. Yet the realm stands on spindles. Look at us, squabbling while Tywin watches with sharpened teeth. Renly leaned lazily over the table. Dear brother. Sharpened teeth mean less when you own the kitchen knives. I humbly offer the reach to your cause. Lord Tyrell pledges 20,000 swords and near as many bushels of grain. Put us on the king's side of the ledger, and Tywin will blink. Oh, Stannis snorted. 20,000 swords pledged to your vanity, not the crown. Tell us what your bloom-smelling allies demand in exchange. Only reason, Renly replied smoothly. Mace asks for the restoration of old Highgarden tolls and assurances that the King's Road South remains free of taxes for 5 years. He glanced toward Robert. A fair bargain for peace. Stannis spoke before Robert could answer. The Reach buys preference. The Stormlands hold loyalty. If you wish food for your city, brother, my galleys can deliver what Fields of Storm's End produce. We need not whore the crown to flowers. Renly grinned. Your galleys haul a yield smaller each year. You forget storms flatten your crops as often as they flatten sails. Robert pounded the table. Enough. I asked for swords unsharpened on each other's throats, not flint and tinder. He looked to Ned. What say the Hand? Ned unfolded a fresh parchment of dispatches. Ravens from the north. The Vale. Even Dorne. Every corner bristles, your grace. Tywin's host fell back toward the Golden Tooth after Harrenhal fell. But they're looting the Riverlands as they go. The Blackfish rallies river lords out of River Run, yet refuses to march until hostages are safe. Balon Greyjoy raids coastline villages at will. Reports say his ships burned Seaguard's fishing fleet 3 nights ago. And beyond the wall, the Night's Watch sends word of wildlings met. Renly's brows rose. The wall still stands. Our concern is here. Ned met his gaze. If giants tear it down, Renly, winter wolves will feast in Highgarden before the flowers bloom again. He turned to Robert. The realm fractures because we forget we are one land. Prove unity. Seat a council that bears each region's voice fairly, and Tywin's promise to protect Westeros will ring hollow? Robert grunted, cradling ribs. You make it sound simple. Stannis' mouth pinched. Simple is not easy, your grace. Give the Tyrells their tolls if it will stave famine. Make the Dornish pay half on their caravan taxes to win their spears. Grant the Vale right of trial for Lysa's quarrel with the crown. We can ill afford pride." "Dee," Renly laughed, a short, almost bitter sound. "I never claimed pride hindered me. Offer Lord Mace his tolls, your grace, and I swear his bread waits at every granary door." Robert eyed him. Alliance forged in necessity may yet outlive war. "Done." He turned toward Stannis. "And you?" Stannis inhaled through flared nostrils. "If you cede Light's blessing Isle off Storm's End for the faith of Rhaelor to build their temple, my people will accept tariffs on timber halved for the Reach in exchange." Renly rolled his eyes skyward. "Trading gods like cockle shells." Stannis ignored him. Robert nodded curtly. "Agreed." Ned leaned forward. "We still require oath of peace from Tywin. Let Stannis ride west under parley and meet him at Golden Tooth, flanked by Riverlord's banners. If Tywin refuses, our armies merge and fall on him before winter locks us within castle walls." Stannis accepted without hesitation. Renly offered to march a Tyrell vanguard with him. At last Robert sighed. "My brothers ride together. Gods help Tywin." Months passed in a blur. Ravens soared, treaties hammered like sword blades, and men drilled until frost clung white to mail rings at dawn. Margaery Tyrell's retinue arrived amid scented petals, and court speculation blossomed that Renly would wed her, binding roses to storms. Sansa watched with awed eyes, while Arya practiced her water dances late at night under Syrio's ghostly tutelage. Jaime remained in a black cell's chamber, though Ned visited often at Robert's insistence. One late night Ned found him awake, tapping a rhythm on wall stone. "What tune?" Ned asked. "Charge call from the Trident," Jaime said, not looking up. "You remember the echo across the river?" "I remember the cry of men drowning beneath those horns." Jaime's fingers stilled. "So do I." Ned studied him. "Your sister faces judgment soon. Tywin negotiates terms but will not spare her confession." Jaime's golden head bowed. "Cersei will never confess. She will burn before she bends." Ned thought of wildfire casks rumored hidden across the city. "Then she must bend." Jaime's laugh was hollow. "She will break first, and the realm with her." A fortnight later, news reached the capital. Robb Stark's vanguard crushed Sir Adam Marbrand near the Tumblestone, freeing Riverlord's hostages. The Blackfish joined Robb, swelling northern ranks. Tywin retreated to Ashmark, sending ravens for aid to the Rock. But Stannis and Renly crossed Blackwater Bay, thrusting west, Tyrell Rosebanner Legion beside gilded stags. Tywin's spies warned him of a pincer, north and south, closing upon the heart of Lannisport. He responded with brutal cunning, a midnight raid into Stonehenge, torching villages Ned's men had sworn to protect. Refugees swarmed into the already strained Crownlands, worsening famine fears. Robert's ribs now ached daily. His temper flared. In one council, he glared at Littlefinger. "Find gold to feed this city, or I nail your tongue to the treasury door." Littlefinger only bowed, but later confided to Ned he'd secretly brokered loans with the Iron Bank to import grain from Pentos. Debt, like winter, was seldom mild. Meanwhile, Dorne's Prince Doran dispatched a peace envoy led by his hot-blooded sister, Lady Malario. She offered 1,000 spearmen in exchange for Myrcella's wardship and Sunspear, and amnesty for Oberyn's past feuds. Ned endorsed the plan. Robert grumbled. But Sansa's tearful plea to spare her sweet sister tipped his decision. Myrcella left at dawn, escorted by Barristan, and a company of knights bearing banners of the Tower of Joy. A name Ned chose with purpose, remembering Lyanna. Days later, in a field outside Stony Sept, Stannis and Renly's combined host met Tywin's western vanguard, under Sir Flamont Brax. The clash spread across barley stubble like fire through tinder. Renly's gay banners lanced forward as Tyrell cavalry thundered under shining rose and green. Stannis drove center with mailed fists, burning heart sigil stark against dark surcoat. When night fell, Brax lay dead in a ring of burnt grass, and Tywin's riders fled toward Castemir's ruins. The pincer closed. In King's Landing, Robert finally collapsed during training yard inspection. coughing blood onto the sand. Pycelle pronounced he needed rest and stronger poultices. Ned sat with him through candlelit evenings, discussing past hunts and half-shared regrets. Robert's voice rasped one night. "If I die, Stannis is rightful. Yet Renly wins hearts, and dragons return in children's tales. Gods, Ned, see them safe. My bastards too." "I will," Ned promised. "Your realm or mine, honor or steel, we share fate." Robert dozed, breathing shallow. Ned turned to the window, moonlight silvering silent stones. He prayed for strength. Cersei's trial opened at dawn on the first clear day of the new year. The High Septon convened beneath the gilded gaze of the Seven inside the great sept of Baelor. A hush fell as Ser Boros led her forward in chains of dark bronze. She wore no crown. Her hair had been shorn to shoulder length, yet pride radiated like flame. Ned watched from beside the king, Robb and Sansa behind him. The charges read, witnesses called. Grand Maester Pycelle wept, recounting Jon Arryn's suspicions. Gendry testified, voice trembling, that gold was royal. He was proof blood runs black in bastards, not gold. Even Jaime was produced, speaking bitterly of their love, yet refusing to call it sin. Cersei listened, lips tight. When asked for final plea, she stepped forward, gaze sweeping the crowded nave. "Lies," she said. "All lies woven by northern wolves and scheming spiders to dethrone my children. Jaime's love I never denied. In ancient Valyria, dragon lords wed sisters and brothers to keep blood pure. Am I less regal?" Gasps rippled. She raised her chin. "Judge me monster if you like, but know this. Monsters protect their own. Touch Joffrey and the city burns. Touch Myrcella and Dorne bleeds. Touch Tommen." Her voice cracked. "And mothers across the realm shall curse your names until oceans boil dry." The High Septon opened trembling lips to speak, but sudden roar shook the sept. An explosion of green fire that blossomed beyond stained glass windows. Screams erupted outside. Ned smelled alchemist's wildfire as it wafted through shattered panes. Panic rippled. Bells clanged. Robert surged to feet, pain forgotten. What in seven hells? He glared at Cersei. She simply smiled. A small, triumphant curve. Wildfire ignited along the mudflats of Blackwater where Tyrell grain ships berthed, barrels stacked high. Flames leapt skyward, engulfing hulls, licking rigging. Desperate sailors cast themselves into the river, thrashing in burning green water. Smoke billowed toward the Red Keep. Small folk rushed streets, trampling underfoot. Joffrey, in the royal box, stared wide-eyed. Sansa seized his hand, dragging him back while gold cloaks scrambled to guard the royal dais. Ned drew steel. "She must be removed," he told Robert. The king nodded, ordering Boros to haul Cersei away. She went willingly, chains jangling like a sinister lullaby. Chaos reigned for hours. Fires along riverfront, riots in Flea Bottom, panic over poisoned wells. Ned led men to form bucket lines. Tyrion directed trebuchets to hurl sand and clay jars on burning ships. Smothering flame. By nightfall, green fire guttered, but grain stores lay ruined. Half the winter's bread gone. In ruined Quaid district, Ned found Cersei's handmaiden Kella clutching a scorched cask. Under questioning, she confessed. Qyburn, a disgraced maester secreted in the dungeons, had perfected a slow-burn fuse for wildfire. The queen smuggled casks into grain holds while trial preparations consumed guard attention. When bells tolled midday prayer, a torch dropped into single fuse set the rest ablaze. Word reached Tywin next day. Bolstered by news, he rallied at Harrenhal and prepared to march again. Winter's first true storm arrived with him. Wind howling, sleet lashing tents, and battles raged under iron-gray skies from River Run to Silverhill. Robb marched west, gray wind leading night raids that sowed terror among Lannister lines. At Ashmark, he clove Tywin's vanguard, capturing Sir Kevin.I. In council, Robb urged pressing on to the Rock. Ned, grim, insisted they recall the cost of attrition. Manderly argued for coastal siege. Great John roared for headlong charge. Final agreement came. Split forces. Robb leading Frey pikes and Mormont spears along the foothills. Great John sweeping down Golden Road with Umber axes. Ned remaining at River Run to secure grain flows and watch Tully borders. Winter deepened. Frost-hardened ground cracked beneath boot heels. Refugees starved in ditches. Bakers' stalls sat empty. In King's Landing, the small council rationed barley and barley bread. Tyrell envoys scrambled to charter new fleets from Volantis. Robert's health waned, punctuated by bursts of rage. He paced solar nights with a wineskin, staring across the dark river where blackened spars still jutted, echo of his failures. Stannis returned victorious from Western Front. Renly remained in Highgarden, wooing Reach lords to his banner. Divisions widened. Ned saw it in every council. The resentment in Stannis' eyes toward Renly's popularity. The faint smirk Renly bore when Stannis spoke of duty. Robert sensed it too. He summoned Ned privately. "I cannot hold them," he admitted. "Wheel spokes break. If I die, they'll spin apart." Ned clasped the king's shoulder. "You are not dead." Robert coughed, blood-flecked phlegm. "Yet." He reached into a chest, retrieving rolled parchment. "My will." He pressed it into Ned's hands. "You are regent until my son Tommen is grown. Only you. Promise." Ned hesitated. Stannis enforces law with iron rod. Realm needs temper." Robert's fingers tightened. "Promise." Dot. Ned remembered icy godswood, silent pleas. He nodded. "I promise." When Robert's heart failed 3 days later, the bells tolled for a king again. Snow fell silently, coating ramparts with white bone. Tommen wept at his father's bedside. Joffrey watched, blank-eyed, crown too large now. Sansa knelt, tears sliding down her cheeks. Ned stood with hand upon Boy King's shoulder, feeling realm's weight settle heavier. Outside, the north remembered. Winterfell's ravens flew bearing tidings of a new king in the north. Robb Stark, Lord of Winterfell, crowned beneath a weirwood's snow-laden boughs by Greatjon's booming cry. Ned received the scroll in Robert's former solar and felt sorrow twist with pride. He looked toward distant north through frost-laced window. Ghost winds whispered across roof tiles as though Lyanna's voice said again, "Promise me, Ned." He answered in a breath. "I have." Tywin answered, Robb's title with steel. He poured from Crakehall to face Umber axes at Golden Tooth, retaking ground lost. Robb turned, intercepting outside Oxcross with knife-edged maneuver. Battle seesawed under falling snow, until frost-crusted ground drank blood of thousands. Yet deeper still in the south, in Dragonstone's painted chamber, Stannis Baratheon brooded over red glowing coals. Melisandre's ruby glittered on her throat. "The night is dark and full of terrors," she whispered, "and the false kings will burn." Stannis stared at the leaping flames, seeing shapes promise power and ruin alike. In Highgarden's perfumed rose garden, Renly slipped ring on Margaery's finger. Tyrell lords cheering. "Once my brother's war ends," he declared, "we bring summer back." But night carried wildling whispers that dragons stirred again in far-off east. Beyond the narrow sea, and somewhere beyond all eyes, out on a lonely frozen fist of land beyond the wall. 3 horn blasts shattered stillness, an ominous call no living watchman had heard in centuries. Ned Stark, regent of 7 kingdoms, read that report by sputtering candle at dawn. He closed his eyes, weary beyond measure. Wars raged, crowns clashed, but the true winter crept closer. He rose, donned fur-lined cloak, and strode into the chill corridor, ready to face a realm fragmented. Every heartbeat felt like hammer on anvil, forging the promise he had sworn, to keep the kingdom whole while honor yet survived. In the yard below, Jon Snow mounted a black courser, cloak swirling Night's Watch black. Ghost barked once, red eyes shining. Jon touched Ned's arm. "Father, I ride for the wall tonight. The Watch must know the realm will stand behind them." Ned nodded. "Bear every torch you can, Jon. And if the darkness grows, light more." He gripped his son's forearm. "The North will answer." Jon smiled, weary, and rode. Snowflakes drifted, gentle as down, over ramparts where queens had screamed and kings had bled. The quiet did not last. Distant horns sounded beyond the Lion Gate, scouts returning with fresh tidings of Tywin's latest march. Ned turned toward the council chamber once more, boots crunching frost, the weight of winter heavy upon his shoulders, and hope smoldering deep within his chest like a guarded ember. He whispered, "Winter is coming, not as warning this time, but as oath," and he walked into the echoing hall where destiny waited.